అవును.
వీళ్ళేమంటే చంపుతారు, ఇట్లా చంపుతారు. ఇప్పుడు నా దగ్గర ఎక్కడ ఉంటుంది అందరి పేర్లు ఉండాలిగా దాంట్లో. కొత్తవాడు వచ్చాడు, వాడి పేరేంటో తెలియదు.
చేద్దాం.
అన్నీ చంపుకు తింటారా ఎట్లా? ఆఫీస్లో ఉన్నారా అంటాడు. ఎక్కడ ఉంటారు ఆఫీస్లో? ఎవరు ఉంటారు? ఎగ్జిక్యూటివ్ రిజిస్ట్రార్, రీవాల్యుయేషన్, రీచెకింగ్ పాలసీ. డియర్ ఆల్, ప్లీజ్ ఫైండ్ అటాచ్డ్ ఆఫీస్. ఎగ్జిక్యూటివ్ పేమెంట్ ఆఫ్ ట్యూషన్ ఫీజ్. ఎందో పెట్టారు. ఇప్పుడే అన్నేవో మెసేజ్లు వస్తాయి.
చూసుకో.
పిచ్చి మనుషుల మీద కూర్చుని ఇప్పుడు ఇమ్మంటారు. ఈ లంజ కొడుకులేమో మాకు టైం లేదు, మేము రాము, మేము చేయమని ఇట్లా కూర్చుంటారు వీళ్ళు. నేను ఒక పిల్ల వెళ్ళిపోయిందా, ఇద్దరు పిల్లలు వెళ్ళిపోయారా?
బావని ఫోన్ చేసి లిస్ట్ పంపిరా అని చెప్పండి.
వాడేం పంపించాడు, ఇప్పుడేమో ఎత్తాడు కూడా, ఫోన్లు ఎత్తాడు. మరి ల్యాప్టాప్నే అయినా అంటే ఒక నిమిషం ముందు అడిగింటే మనం చేద్దాం. ఇప్పుడు కావాలని వాళ్ళు వెళ్ళిపోయారని చెప్పడానికి అంతే. మన దగ్గర ఉంటే వాడు ఎత్తడు పెట్టడు రా ఆయన, వేస్ట్. 10ంటికి కానీ తెరవరు పొద్దున్నే. ఎక్కడ చేయనురా, ఎక్కడ తేనరా, నేను ఎట్ట తేనరా. మిగతా పిల్లోడు దిమ్మని వాడిది అడ్రస్ ఇమ్మంటే సరిపోతుంది. అక్కడికి అన్నీ పెట్టుకునే చచ్చింట, అక్కడికి చచ్చింట, అన్నీ చచ్చింట, అయినా చంపుతారు. దాంట్లో పెట్టేసాము, లిస్ట్ పెట్టుకుని తిరుగుతుంటాగా అందులో. ఉండనీయరు, ప్రశాంతంగా ఉండనీయరు. ఇట్లా అడిగితే అప్పటికప్పుడు ఎవడిస్తారు? ఎవరి దగ్గర రెడీమేడ్ ఉంటారు, కావాలని కాదు. వీళ్ళు ఎవరినన్నా అడిగి చెప్పవా అంటారు. ఆఫీస్లో ఎవరుంటారు, ఏం చేస్తారు, ఏం తెలుసు? వాళ్ళు అడుగు కూర్చొని అడుగుతుంటారు. 6 దాకా కూర్చోవాలి ఇంకా రోజంతా. కనీసం డేటా ఉంటుంది కదా నా దగ్గర.
6 క్లాస్ ఉంటే
అది మన దగ్గర రాదేమో కదా, మనం పంపించింది ఓఎస్డీ నుంచి అది పంపించుంటాం కదా. చూడొచ్చిందా?
ఉంటుంది, ట్రై చేద్దాం. ఉండు అవని క్లాస్ అయిపోయి చూద్దామండి. అది ఇంకేం
చూడు ఉందో లేదో, ఏవి ఆడిషన్స్ డిలీషన్స్ అయి ఉంటాయి కదా.
ఎంఎస్సీ ఫోరెన్సిక్ సైన్స్. ఎవరు వెళ్ళిపోయాడు? దీంట్లో అడిషన్ డిలీషన్ చేయట్లేదా?
మన వాళ్ళని అడుగు, గ్రూప్లో పెట్టి ఎవరున్నాయి అప్డేట్ వచ్చిన పిల్లాడి పేరేంటో చెప్పమని. కొత్త పిల్లోడి పేరేదో వైభవన్ ఎవడో చెప్తాడు, గురుప్రీత్కో ఎవరో చెప్పమని. నీ దగ్గర లిస్ట్ ఉంది కదా, లిస్ట్ ఏంటో చెప్పాను. ఎన్ని పెట్టుకున్నా ఏదో ఒకటి పెట్టుకున్నా ఏదో ఒకటి. ఒకసారి ఫోన్ చేయి, ఇందులో చేయడానికి లేదు.
నీది పోయింది మీటింగ్ నుంచి. మీటింగ్ నుంచి వెళ్ళిపోయావు ఆల్రెడీ బయటికి. ఇంట్లో
ఎందులో మీటింగ్ నుంచి వెళ్ళిపోయావు?
సరే నేను చెప్తాలే.
ఆల్రెడీ ఇచ్చున్నాం వాళ్ళకి, మళ్ళీ మాడిఫికేషన్స్ అవి ఉంటాయి కదా అంటాడు. డిఫరెంట్ క్రిమినాలజిస్ట్ అంటారా, వేరియస్ క్రిమినాలజిస్ట్ అంటారా?
వేరియస్.
డిఫరెంట్ అంటారు కదా. ఎందుకు? డిఫరెంట్ అంటే వస్తువులకు వాడతారు, వేరియస్ అంటే మనుషులకు వాడతారా?
దీంట్లో చూడు రాయ్, వాడు ఫోన్ చేస్తున్నాం.
వీడు వెళ్ళిపోయాడు దీంట్లో. తి సర్కార్, స్వాతి, లక్ష్మి, కార్తిక్, రమేష్, ఐశ్వర్య, శృతి, దెన్ శుభింగి, ఖుష్బు వెళ్ళిపోయింది కదా ఇవాళ.
వైభవ్, वैभव, हाँ ये अपना नया जो बच्चा है ना, वो गुरप्रीत सिंह के बाद पास बैठता है, उसका नाम क्या है? प्रवीण। कहाँ से आया वो? त्रिपुरा से। हाँ हाँ गुवाहाटी नहीं, तो गुवाहाटी से आया
ना। उनका नंबर है क्या तुम्हारे पास? है ना
उसका कुछ फ़ोन नंबर, उसका फ़ोन नंबर है तो थोड़ा भेजना मेरे। और कौन लोग चले गए यहाँ से? कौन नहीं, कौन चले गए यहाँ से? सरगम एंड खुशबू चले गए।
सरगम,
खुशबू, एक मिनट।
सरगम कौन सा सरगम?
सरगम का कुछ आगे पीछे है। सरगम मेहरा,
सरगम
मेहरा लेफ्ट, खुशबू लेफ्ट, अक्षित आल्सो लेफ्ट, अक्षित आल्सो लेफ्ट।
अक्षित, हाँ ठीक है।
तो 3 लोग
प्रवीण इसके बदले में आया। प्रवीण,
हाँ प्रवीण 3 चले गए, एक आया, राइट? हाँ राइट, ఓకే థ్యాంక్ యూ.
నంబర్ ఏమన్నా ఫోన్ నెంబర్ లేదంటున్నా? గుర్ప్రీత్ నాడు వాడి దగ్గరే ఉంటాడుగా. గుర్ప్రీత్ ఫోన్
ఆ నెంబర్ ఎందుకు చెప్తే అయిపోయిందిగా, ముగ్గురు తెలిసిపోయారుగా. వాడి పేరు తెలిసింది, ఒకడు వచ్చాడు వేరే స్టేషన్ నుంచి, ముగ్గురు వెళ్ళిపోయారు, చెప్తే అయిపోయిందిగా.
ఖుష్బు ఫస్ట్ బిల్డ్ వెళ్ళిపోయింది పిల్ల. ఖుష్బు వెళ్ళిపోయింది. తర్వాత అక్షిత్ పూరి వెళ్ళిపోయాడు.
అక్షిత్ వెళ్ళిపోయాడు.
తర్వాత సర్గం ఏదో అన్నాడు కదా,
సర్గం మెహరా.
సర్గం మెహరా. ఇంకా
అంతే,
ముగ్గురేగా వెళ్ళిపోయింది. ముగ్గురు వెళ్ళిపోయారు. ఇప్పుడు ఎంతమంది ఉన్నారు? 22 ఉండిన్నారు దాంట్లో. 22లో ముగ్గురు వెళ్ళిపోయారా? 22లో ముగ్గురు వెళ్ళిపోతే ఎంత? 20, 21, 19,
19 ఒకటి కలపాలి.
20 ఉన్నారు ఇప్పుడు. 20. వీళ్ళ పేర్లు ఆల్రెడీ ఉన్నాయి. వీళ్ళకి ఒక ప్రవీణ్ అనే వాడిని యాడ్ చేస్తే సరి.
20 స్టూడెంట్స్ ఇప్పుడు ఇన్ ఎంఎస్సి. 3 లెఫ్ట్.
అక్షిత్ పూరి, అక్షిత్ పూరి గాట్ ఇన్ హోమ్ల్యాండ్ సెక్యూరిటీ, గుజరాత్.
లెఫ్ట్. సర్గం,
ఖుష్బు అండ్ సర్గం మెహరా. సర్గం మెహరా న్యూ జాయిన్డ్ ఫ్రమ్ ప్రవీణ్. అది వీడు ఎక్కడి నుంచి వచ్చాడో కనుక్కుందామని దానికోసం ఫోన్ చేయమంటున్నా. వాడికి ఏం లేదు, వాడి నెంబర్ తీసుకో అంటే తీసుకోండి. గుర్ప్రీత్ నెంబర్ కూడా అప్పుడు లేదు, ఆ లిస్టులో లేడు. గుర్ప్రీత్ కూడా వచ్చాడని రాయాలి.
అంతే. గుర్ప్రీత్ ఎక్కడి నుంచి వచ్చాడు? రాలేదా? లేడా?
అప్పుడు లిస్టులో లేడు. గుర్ప్రీత్ అనేవాడు, ప్రవీణ్ అనేవాళ్ళు ఉన్నారు, ఇప్పుడు వచ్చారు. మిగతా వాళ్ళు లేరు.
గుర్ప్రీత్ ఫ్రమ్ ఢిల్లీ లేదా? అందులో
మనం పంపించిన దాంట్లో లేదనుకుంటా.
వాడు ఢిల్లీ నుంచి ఎందుకు వస్తాడు? వాడికి ఢిల్లీ కావాలి వాడికి. వీడి గౌహటి నుంచి వచ్చాడు. వీడి గౌహటి నుంచి
అన్నీ రాయకు, ఇంకా ఏం రాయకు.
వాడు త్రిపుర నవరాజు మాట్లాడేవాడు. వాడు త్రిపుర నుంచి వచ్చాడు.
ఇంకా పెట్టు మరి.
సెల్ ఆన్ చేస్తాను. అడ్మిట్ కొడుతున్నాను ఇక్కడ నేను.
ఇది ఒకటి గుర్తుపెట్టుకోవాలి, ఇది అది చేసి పంపించేస్తే. గుర్ప్రీత్ సింగ్ ఉంది కానీ వాడు అలాంటి ఎక్కడ అక్షిత్ పూరి లేదు, అక్షిత్ పూరి లేదు కదండి. అక్షిత్ పూరి, ఖుష్బూ లేదు. ప్రగతి ఉందే, కేశవలాల్ ధీరజ్లాల్ అనే ఎమ్మెల్యేలో
ఉంది 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 ఉంది.
ప్రగతి
ప్రగతి ఉంది ఉంది.
కేశవలాల్ ధీరజ్లాల్
ఉంది.
పదకొండు, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 ఉన్నారు ఇప్పుడు. 20 ఇంకా 21. ప్రవీణ్ అంటే 21.
ఆన్ చేసేనా చాలు చాలు.
ఇంకా టైం అడిగాం కదా, 1 గంట. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
I think it's time up now. I have got some 2-3 calls from office, so I got just delayed. So we'll start off. So we have, I think previous classes, if you try to recollect, we just made a beginning to understand criminology as a discipline, entire separate discipline, and we try to understand what it composes of, and then whether it is a scientific approach or otherwise. And we said it is definitely a scientific approach where we try to study the criminal behavior. And we also said a lot of studies goes into it, lot of sub-disciplines. Example, your psychology, biology, political science, sociology. So a lot of other disciplines are also involved to better understand criminology as a subject. So we say it is almost an interdisciplinary kind of a science. Now we said we said other sciences are also involved in it. It is rather can be better understood as a interdisciplinary kind of an approach to understand what are the causes and what are the consequences, and rather how to understand a crime, and then how many patterns of crime can be there, what is the nature of the crime. So like that we try to understand and address different factors that can contribute to crime, and what is the nature and then extent of the cause of these factors, and then if they are there, how to control the crime. So these are all some of the aspects which we'll be studying under the subject or topic called criminology. Now, accordingly, there are different theories that have been propounded time and again. Then each proponent has got his own philosophy added in that, and then they try to justify their theories by a lot of empirical studies, by looking at the deviant behavior out of the society. When society is made of so many people, out of them, why most of them are law abiding and only a few sect of people in the society, why are they exhibiting this kind of a deviant behavior? What could be the root cause of that? And is it something related to mind, or somebody is born criminal, or is criminal behavior an acquired character or a trait? And then when everybody is in the same society, how is that out of that some people are emerging as law abiding and some other sect of people are turning to the other side of the society? Why are they becoming antisocial rather? And in the process, something this criminal behavior, is it inborn, or people are born criminals, or is it some genetic inheritance that is controlling, or is there any parameter in the brain itself or in the skull itself? Are these people born differently, or some physical characters because of defective mind, is that getting reflected in the body shape? So there are a number of theories that were propounded by various criminologists time and again, and then they try to support their theories by conducting lot of experiment. Some have empirical data to support it and all. So in these upcoming classes, we'll be studying more on these aspects. What are all the different schools of thought, and then how a classical kind of a theory, criminal theory, is different from the positivistic theory, and then so on and so forth. Now, we have to understand that, criminology is all about, as I said, a interdisciplinary study, and it also talks about different process of both making law and then breaking law. What are the repercussions of breaking law and all? And the problem as such is not for an individual, because it's a social problem, threat to the entire society. Then we also in the process try to understand what are different trends and what are different patterns, and if crime do happen, then what measures, what control measures are there, and then how these control measures have to be imposed. Is it every time punishment that will curb the crime, or punishment के अलावा और कुछ है? By adopting those measures, control measures, will we be successful in implementing those control measures? Can we bring in some crime-free society kind of a thing? So these things we will try to understand when we study criminology per se. Then use of scientific methods, as I said, to study both nature and then consequences, causes, and then how to control the crime is what is being studied under the criminology. So this is about the objective of studying criminology. Now there are many anthropologists way back in 1889 by name Paul Topinard. He is one of the finest French anthropologists, who is the one who tried to who tried to coin this particular word called the criminology, Paul Topinard. Paul Paul Topinard, Paul Topinard. He is a French anthropologist, and then he is the one who tried to coin the word criminology. Now, they also said, when you see anthropology, it talks about criminal body types, and then it is something different from the biometric pursuits. So, and the word crime, where is the root for that? In Latin, we have the root for crime. It is coming from acquisition, or we can call that as charge or guilt. And of course, logy, we all know that it is the study of something. So when we try to put together these words together, that is acquisition and knowledge or the study, then it becomes criminology is nothing but the study of a crime. So it has come from the word acquisition. Crime has come from the Latin root called acquisition, or we also in colloquial terms we call it as charge or guilt. So this is the backdrop now. The criminology is a body of study, as we said, which is trying to understand what crime is, and we say it is rather a social phenomena, and it includes within its scope a lot of things like process of making laws, as I said, breaking laws also, and what is the reaction towards the breaking of law. And criminology is the development of body of general as well as verified principles. It combines both these principles, general as well as the verified principles, and the treatment of it and what are the causative factors. And there are a lot of criminologists who have contributed to this body of knowledge, and one such criminologist we can, a noted one we can call is Sutherland. And then he gives a three principle type of philosophy. What is that? There he says sociology of law, and then scientific analysis of causes of crime, and then how to control this crime. So these three aspects are propounded by Sutherland. He says sociology of law, then scientific analysis of causes of crime. When there are so many causes for a crime, how to analyze this and have to come to conclusions that these are the causative factors of the crime. And when you know that these are the causes for a person to commit crime, then how are you going to control these crimes? So three aspects of criminology Sutherland gives, and the other proponents are also, from Greek also you see that they have developed a naturalistic explanation of crime, and then Hippocrates gives a physiological explanation for crime, and then he says brain is the organ of the mind. He argues that brain is, after all, is the organ of the mind. And then Plato also tries to say that individual soul can be represented by three elements. He says reason is one, desire and spirit. So he tries to say that individual soul has got three elements, and he also proposes that spirit being the agent used by the reasons to overcome passion. So whenever you reason it out, you come out of the passion or the desire. So, and he says the lowest part of the irrational soul was located in the body below the diaphragm. So what he says basically is, and the Aristotle is also another strong propounder of this particular phenomena. He says basically by nature man is very good, but he will be failing to follow the reasons. When he fails to follow the reasoning capacity, then that may result in some sin or some crime. That is what he proposes. So these are all before a kind of a classical school of criminology emerged. This is the backdrop where different criminologists, according to their own definition, they try to propound these kind of definitions for criminology. Now, the classical school of criminology, again, in that we have pre-classical school, classical school, and then neoclassical school. So we have three different categories of classical school of criminology. One is pre-classical school, the second one is classical school, and a modified version of classical school we can say as neoclassical school. It is nothing but a little modification of the existing classical school. So what do we understand by pre-classical school? So it all started with the beginning of during that period there was formalization of court proceedings, and there was jury system which was very structured, and then the crimes have been classified, and there are a lot of constructions for jails and all. They started constructing that, and then they said all crimes can be classified into different classes like felonies, misdemeanor, and then other categories. And that was the time where we also see the issuing of Magna Carta, both for civil and constitutional rights. So that is the pre-classical school where you see everything, criminal justice system slowly getting formalized. That is, you see that there is a construction of jails. You see that there is a pakka jury system also is there, and then there is slowly a classification of the crimes also has begun. So they try to classify majorly the crimes into two categories. They said felonies and misdemeanor. And during that period, way back in 1215 or so, one King John, he came under compulsion, and that paved the way for the enactment of what is called as Magna Carta. So that is a movement towards civil and then constitutional right. It gives a lot of civil and then constitutional right called the Magna Carta. Now that is about pre-classical school. And when you talk of classical school of criminology, so there are a lot of reasons behind the emergence of classical school of criminology. So they say the first relative adequate form of system of thinking in the area of criminology is what is there. I mean, first systematically they try to define and all the in a different form and all. They try to give the name as classical school of criminology. So of course there are a lot of inconsistencies in the existing practice at that time, but judges could introduce, they said, personal biases, though he is sitting at a very high pedestal, but then they can also commit mistake. That means at times personal biases of the judges can also creep into whenever they give the judgment and all. So they said, they strongly, classical school of criminology strongly believed that why harsh punishment rather than equitable justice should be there. So the punishment, the more harsh it is, the more kind of a deterrence it can bring. And then we have to just, when we talk of equitable justice, that doesn't really work. Only they propounded harsh punishment should be there in place of equitable justice. Only that can, harsh punishment itself alone can bring in deterrence in the mind of the person. That's what they strongly believed in classical theory. So what it strongly believed is, man is hedonistic. That means he would like to seek pleasure, and then he always tries to avoid pain. That is what is hedonistic mentality. So basically what they said is, man is a hedonistic. That means he is a person who always tries to seek pleasure. That is, he is after pleasure, and then whenever in the process there is some little pain, he would like to avoid pain. So that is the hedonistic behavior of man. And then he will exercise, he has full will, that is, he has all freedom. He is a free man. He can choose between good and bad, what is good and what is bad. He has a lot of choice, and he can exercise his free will and decide upon his actions, whether he can choose a good action or he go for an evil kind of a doing. It is within his hands. That means he can exercise his willpower, and then he can use his brain, and then he is a free man after all. He can understand what is good and what is evil. And once he can discriminate between good and evil, that means he is also aware of the consequences that flow from that. So a good action always breeds good, good deeds breed good result, and then evil deeds, definitely it will also bear evil consequences. So that means when he has a free will, he can understand what is good and bad. He has choices before him. He may choose good thing, good action, or he may prefer to go for an evil action. And then that means he is fully aware what are the consequences that can flow out of his own action. He is also aware. So he is a free man to choose. But then one very characteristic feature of any human being is he would like to be a hedonistic. That means he is after seeking pleasures rather than pain. And in the process, if he has to encounter some pain, he straightaway avoids that particular pain. Is what is the philosophy behind the classical theory of criminology, or classical school of criminology. So as he knows the consequences also, since he has a free will, since he is agnostic, so all that he wants is a life which is pleasurable, not a life which gives him the pain. Then there are again lot of schools of thought that have began to come. And the first recommendation that a classical school of criminology was given by Beccaria, he has got a lot of recommendations to make. So few of the recommendations that he would like to make are that laws are conditions under which independent and isolated men get united to form a society, isn't it? So independent people are there, people are isolated. So these people are getting united, they are forming a society, and then they are being governed by certain condition. That condition we can call it as law. So laws are conditions. That means there is a kind of a rule, there are kind of a restriction, there are kind of a condition. So under which these people are working. People who are independent, who are people who are isolated, they are the people. So all of them are tied, united, they get together, and then they are collectively forming as a society. That means society is governed, or society is conditioned by laws. And since these people, group of people are together, they are coming together and forming a group. So this group is called the society. And then to the binding feature for this society is that they need to follow certain social norms. So social norms slowly can take the shape of law, which is rather a condition under which these people who are otherwise independent, who are otherwise isolated, they are forming into a united group, and the name that is given to this group is called the society. So that means what? When you want to be united, you need to satisfy certain things. There is a lot of liberty that is given to human being. Now if I have to be under condition, some portion, at least all of my liberties are to be sacrificed. So each one of them in the society, because it is group of isolated independent people that are forming the society, each one of them, they need to sacrifice whatever liberty or whatever rights that are given to them. So once they are forming a society, each one of the member in the society need to sacrifice each of these liberties that are given to them. And why are they doing? It is for their own good that they are doing. Why this sacrifice? Not to please somebody. It is in their own good. They are doing this little bit of sacrifice of whatever liberties that are given to them. They need to sacrifice that, and that will only for the good of the society. And then who is the authority, who is the administrator of this depository of legitimate liberty? So liberty is legitimate, and then there is a depository of this freedom or liberty. So the control is vested with an administrator. So administrator, we mean here the sovereign. administrator here is sovereign. That means whatever sovereign power has got, it has got full control. He is the he or she is the who are sitting at the helm of affair are the ones who are going to administer. And when a certain liberty, portion of the liberty is to be given to a particular individual, so when it has to be curtailed, when it has to be given, and then this kind of a discrimination exclusively lies with the administrator. Why is he called administrator? Because the full power of giving the liberty in portion is vested with them. So they are the depository of the legitimate liberty which is there. So to give somebody liberty or not to give liberty is entirely at the discretion of the sovereign. So hence sovereign otherwise can also be called as the depository, and he can also be called as the administrator. So this is one of the strongest recommendations that Beccaria has given us, and he is one of the classical propounder of the classical school of thought. Now the tangible motives for punishment should be established. That's what he said. There must be some motives that can be attributed for punishment, and those who are against the infractors, if you can say, those who try to violate the laws which are there to cover or condition the society. If somebody is trying to violate that, so they are called infractors of the law, and they need to be given punishment depending upon the tangible motives that we can attribute to them. So this is one of the recommendation that Beccaria gives. Now the other second point that he tries to emphasize is only the laws can decree punishment for crime. So as per the law, as per the prescribed definitions that are given in the law, whatever punishment for a particular crime is specified or defined under the law, so that degree of punishment can be given only by the law. Now the authority for this can reside only with the legislators who represent the entire society united by a social control. Now there are laws, you can decree punishment for that. Whenever there is a crime that is reported, there must be some authority. Now the authority, where is it vested? Now legislators are the ones, we know that they are the ones who are going to make laws, and they have been represented by the society. Elections happen, and then they are represented, they represent the people, and they are the ones who can give us laws, and then laws define what crime is, law defines how much punishment is to be given. That means law can decree the punishment, isn't it? Now why legislators alone are vested with this power of enforcing the law or enacting the law? Because every human being cannot make laws. So all isolated independent people, since they have formed into a society, since the society has given some power to elect as legislators, so since they are representing entire lot of independent people, so hence naturally the power should flow from them. So that is the reason why legislators, while they make laws which have the power to decree punishment according to the crime that is being committed by the individual. And then since society is bound by social contract, so it is a social contract, and we said they are going to sacrifice some liberties. And why are they doing? It is for their own good. Controlled liberty is given to them. Why? It is in their own good. If everybody, because they have free will, and then because they know what are the consequences, and since that kind of liberty is given to them, liberty has to be controlled. A restricted liberty has to be given. And in the process, each independent and isolated individual who is otherwise coming in contact, social contact as a society, there has to be some kind of a sacrifice on the part of their liberties. So if they are violating, if they are infractors of the law, definitely a kind of punishment has to be given. And what kind of punishment has to be given is also recommended in the recommendations given by Beccaria. He says it should be harsh enough so that it can act as a deterrence to the individual, who will again think twice. Next time if he has to commit crime, again he has to think twice before he commits the crime. And then the laws, not everybody can decree punishment. There are people who are represented by elected by the people, and they are authorized. The power is vested in them, so that they since they are representing the people, so whatever laws that they make, they need to be followed, and any infractor of the laws which are made by the legislators are there, and they need to be sufficiently punished is the recommendation that is given. Now, judges in any criminal law cannot give the authority to interpret laws. So those days they said, there are laws which have been enacted, legislature has enacted the laws, and judges are not here to interpret what is given in the law. That's the another recommendation he gives. For every crime that comes before him, a judge is required to complete a perfect syllogism in which the major premise must be the general law. So what is the governing law that he is and what is the major premise that he has to implement? It is only the general law, he says. And then see, they are not there to interpret law. Whatever that law is there, they have to ritually follow the law in any criminal case. And then if the infractor is proved to be guilty, then he should be punished, and the punishment should be such that it should be harsh enough to create a deterrence in not only the person who is doing the crime, and to others also, those who are following him, those who are observing him. It should also act as a deterrence is what is the. And judges, while they are doing the trial of a criminal case, so what they have to, the major premise what they have to follow is the recommendation says it has to be a general law. Now, the social actions, what is the basis of any social action? It has to be utilitarian. That's what he said. So all social actions, it should have a utilitarian concept. That means greatest happiness to the greatest number. So whatever social action that we try to propound, so what should be the basis? It should be utilitarian. That means general public, greater public at large. These days we use the word public at large. That means what does it imply? Greatest happiness to the greatest number. So most people should be benefited. To make most of the people, law-abiding people who represent the bulk of the society, so it is their happiness, public at large, their happiness, their will, that should prevail. So that is the social action we need to approve. Then on the seriousness of crime, he said, crime must be considered as an injury to society. So he also says that it should be viewed, crime should always be viewed or considered as an injury to the society. Public at large, whenever you say society, public at large. So when public at large is the wording that we see, that means we have to see the bulk of the society, the law-abiding citizens of the society. And whenever we give punishment, there should be proportionality depending upon the graveness of the crime, how serious is the crime that is being committed. So accordingly, the punishment has to be little harsh for that. So that I told you already, that should act as a deterrence. Deterrence force to the person who is committing crime, not only him and the others who are observant on the behavior of this person. It should act as a deterrence. Then there must be a proportionality. The more serious the crime, the more severe should be the punishment. So that means there is a proportionality between these two. And whatever punishment we give, that has to be certain and prompt. It has to be prompt, and it has to be quick and certain. That's what it also proposes. So one of the greatest curbs on the crime is not cruelty of punishment, but their infallibility. It has to be certain. Punishment, it should not be so cruel, but at the same time, it should be it should be forceful enough that it should create a kind of a deterrence in the mind of the person. So that's what it says. It can be moderate, It need not be so cruel, but can be moderate. But ultimate aim of giving any punishment in the process of curbing crime is only to act as a deterrent for the others. No, this is the just not fear of another, but it can leave a stronger impression in the mind of the person, which we call as the deterrence. And prevention of crime is more important than punishment. See, second timer, repeaters, we have to avoid them, recidivism and all we need to avoid. So the best way to avoid is, not how strong is the punishment or how severe is the punishment. It is only the prevention of crime is more important, which means that you publicize laws. Publicizing the laws and making aware that people should know that this is for this kind of a punishment, this kind of a crime that is being committed, this is going to be the punishment. If there is a proportionality between these two, this will definitely send in a message in the society that that if we do this particular kind of a crime, we are definite to get a punishment. That's the reason why we said publication of the laws is very essential, and then this message should reach the public. At least people who intend to do this kind of a crime or this kind of an activity are sure to get this kind of a punishment. Certainty and then promptness should also be there. And then punishment, he says, is only to deter and not to as a kind of a taking revenge. This is also he propounded. And imprisonment should be widely employed and it should be improved. So these are some strong recommendations, almost 12 in number, are being propounded by Beccaria, whom we can say is the father of classical school of criminology. And then he talks about establishment of jury systems, establishment of laws, and then he says how the souvenir can be a depository of liberty, and each member in the society who are otherwise independent citizens and isolated citizens, how are they coming and getting united, and what is the bond that makes them united, and then in the process of becoming groups, what is that they need to sacrifice, and if they are sacrificing their liberty, for what purpose are they sacrificing their liberties? We said this is only for their general good. And then it also strongly recommends that laws are there, and then not everybody, isolated independent individual of the society, can make laws. So it will be very difficult. So there is a representative of people among the society, and they are called the legislators, and they are vested with the power of enacting the laws. And whenever a criminal proceeding happens, it is the judge. He need not enforce his own biases over there, but then all that he has to do is he has to follow a general law. And then he also said, when a crime happens, the idea to curb is not to give a very severe and harsh punishment, but there should always be a proportionality between the seriousness of the crime and the severity of the punishment that can be given to the individual. And he also says, and prevention is the better than cure, what we say in health scenario also. Similar thing also works good when we talk of crimes and criminology. Then they also say that the more publication you make about the laws, people are aware of that, and once they are aware that the laws are going to be stringent, and you can also see in the latest development of the Medico murder case also, we say, many cases, even if it is some eve-teasing or some ragging, if they are curbed at that stage only, if a severe punishment is going to be levied on them even at that particular initial stage of occurrence of a crime, then this kind of repercussion would never would have happened. That is the philosophy that we are feeling now. But this has been said way back in 18th century only. So where they said, the purpose of any punishment is only to deter people, but it's the purpose is not to take revenge kind of a thing. And even this paved way, the Beccaria's principles are recommendations. paved the way for French Code, and French Code in 1791 it has been given, and there is some modification. So Becquerel's principle, they said there need to be some modification. I mean, because all the interests of the greatest ease of administration are essence. There are certain recommendations where there is little difficulty in implementation part of it. So in place of classical theory of criminology, now with little modification, neoclassical school has taken the place of classical school of or classical theory of criminology. So what were the problems that were inherent in a classical school, if you try to understand that? So there are three major problems we can enlist. So why a neoclassical school of criminology has taken the place of classical school of criminology? So there are three major flaws, or rather errors that we can say, or problems that are encountered in the classical school. So the three are: one, ignorance of individual differences. People are different. There are going to be differences, but then classical theory basically it tries to ignore the individual aspect. That means it only said there are people, independent people, then isolated people, they can be united, they can under some social norms, they're all united, some liberties are sacrificed. It only talks about that, and it talks about free will. Man is at liberty to, and he has got choices to choose between good and evil. He also knows the consequences. It is talking about a normal human being, a prudent, reasonable man. But then the problems are that not all individuals are alike. There are going to be individual differences. Now, and significance of particular situation. Otherwise, a good person whose actions are always towards good deeds, but there are people, good people also, in a different situation they may become bad, they may act in a bad way or a wrong way. So the classical theory is ignoring this part, the situational concept, or how situation can manipulate, or how situation can bring in this kind of a change, where even good person is turning to be or changing to be a bad person. So situational thing also has a lot of significance in molding a person, is a second problem. Now what is the third problem? Now first offender and repeater, there should be a different treatment that has to be given. But in classical theory, you see same type of treatment is given both. It doesn't discriminate between the first timer and the repeater. So naturally, that is also one of the inherent problems in implementing or understanding the classical school of theory. And then when there are a sect of people who cannot exercise their free will, that means they cannot discriminate between good and bad. But on one side we say people are independent, they can exercise their free will, and then everybody is normal, everybody can exercise their free will, everybody has got the capacity to exercise their free will. That's what is presumed in the criminal classical school. But then the problem that we all know is the universe is made of even minors, people who have low IQ, they are there, we are calling them as idiots. People who have some mental derailment, some mental ailment, they are also there. So these are people who are incompetent as far as the decision making is there. They do not understand, they can't exercise their free will because of their incapacity, because of some inborn problems within them. So they should be labeled as differently abled persons. They should be given a special treatment for them, because since the presumption under classical theory is everybody is equal and everybody has their own will and they can discriminate between good and bad, and they also know the consequence. But there may be some people in the entire in the society as a separate sector who cannot understand the consequences of their action, and they cannot exercise their free will because they are otherwise differently abled persons, insane people, idiots, those who have some mental problems. So these are the people who are not able to exercise their free will, thereby they are unaware of the consequences of their own actions. So some special privilege, because they are differently abled, some special privilege need to be, they cannot be equated on par with the general public or people who are reasonably good, who can exercise their will, and people who are little prudent comparatively, those whose mental makeup is little firm and all, so they cannot be equated with the abnormal people. These people to some extent can be called abnormal or differently abled people. So these are some of the inherent 3 to 4 kind of inherent problems that we encounter in classical school of criminology. So in order to mitigate these or come over these problems, they have introduced a modified version of the classical school of criminology and gave a label as neoclassical school of criminology. Then the modifications of the doctrine in order to become a neoclassical is that the free will concept. We already said there are people who are affected mentally because of some pathology, because of some insanity, or because of some other conditions. They were unable to use their free will. So to accommodate them, there need to be modification to that extent is what is recommended in the neo-classical theory of criminology. Now, acceptance of the validity of the mitigating circumstances. Then another problem we said, the good or bad of a person who can exercise free will, this will be changed completely. One of the governing factors which controls the will of a person is situation. So we have to take into account the situation also whenever we talk of criminal behavior. Criminal behavior can turn to criminality when the situation changes. So this particular angle in classical theory was never thought of. So to give a room for that also, in neoclassical theory, they said situation at times also plays a very major role. So we have to factor in the situation also whenever we define or whenever we have to consider the criminal behavior. Now, modification of the doctrine of responsibility in such cases like insanity, age and all. Minors, they are also incapacity. They can't understand what are the consequences that flow out of their own actions. Likewise, insanity or drunkenness. In these situations, we need to have some kind of a factor that has to be incorporated, which says that in order to take the responsibility, one should know what are the consequences. What are the consequences that are flowing out of their own action. When they are aware of that, then definitely they have the free will, so they can understand the good and bad. So definitely when what is the actions reaping? Good actions reap good deeds, and then bad actions likewise will result in bad behavior. So the consequences when they know, and by nature man being a hedonistic, he wants all pleasure, no pain. Only pleasure I want. I try to avoid pain. So if that is the nature of the person, then some modification is definitely required. So that is how the neoclassical school of thought has taken its shape. And they also said, when you say the mens rea, the main things which the two elements that we now talk about is actus reus, mens rea. Way back in neoclassical theory of criminology itself, they have coined these two words, that is knowledge and intent. So they are very, very essential, that they said at the time of committing crime, whether a person, whether an individual who is intending to commit a crime, does he has the knowledge, does he have the knowledge, or does he have the intent? These two factors had to be taken into account whenever we try to define crime or whenever we look for the essentials of crime. Now, admissions into court procedures the expert testimony. So those days only the concept of the testimony given by the expert in that particular field, and then the responsibility that they are going to, whatever examination that they do, and whatever analysis that they are going to do, so are they going to take the responsibility for that? And in the court admission, court proceedings, are these expert testimonies admissible or not, is also another factor that they have. So all these modifications, little modifications that are there in the classical theory, which they thought are little flaws, inherent flaws or inherent problems that are there inside the classical theory, has to be mitigated by introducing little modification in the classical theory, where they have factored into situations and the competence of the person who are trying to take decisions. So why they are not able to take decisions, so what elements in them are making them become incompetent and all. And then they also said, before we fix up the responsibility, criminal responsibility, you need to see at the time of committing that offense whether the individual has got knowledge and intention to do that. That has to be taken into account. And it also incorporates that when an expert gives any kind of a testimony, when he deposes something before the court, his admission should be approved. It should be admitted in the court of law, is what is given in the these are recommendations and modifications that are suggested to make the classical theory appear little realistic, and hence it is called neoclassical theory. Now again, if you see in the recommendations that are propounded by the scientist, the Beccaria, he tries to classify again. There are punishments, no doubt. There should be gradation of the punishment, and then he suggests almost 11 different types of punishments. So starting from a very severe and serious and ultimate kind of a punishment, he calls it as a capital punishment, or it can also be, as we all know, can be called as death penalty. That is the ultimate thing. Out of the 11 he lists out. And then afflictive punishment is another name he tries to give. That is whipping and then starvation. These he names as afflictive kinds of punishments. And then he also talks about indelible punishment, that is going to leave a long-lasting kind of a permanent kind of a marking on the body of the individual. So this can be achieved by branding, by amputation and mutilation. So he says indelible, a mark which cannot be mitigated, mark which cannot be removed or reduced. So he calls such punishment as indelible punishment, and he tries to include branding, amputation, mutilation as some of the punishments which definitely leave a inerasable kind of indelible mark on the individual. Hence he calls such punishments as indelible punishments. And ignominious punishments are those where, public punishment, that is, if you have to hang somebody, do it in the public. So this he calls as ignominious punishments. And then there are punishments, senured by his or her community. So community kind of a service also one has to undergo. And chronic punishment, he labels some punishments as chronic punishments. So what are those punishments? Banishment, exile, imprisonment. So these are all chronic, more severe kind of punishments. And restrictive punishments is the name given to some punishments, where license, revocation, and then administrative sanctions, these are given a separate nomenclature altogether as restrictive punishments. Now compulsive punishments are also another category of punishments, where it is required that an offender to perform a certain kind of an action, such as to make restitution or to keep in touch with the probation officer. So there are some probation officers, your attendance is compulsory now, and then you need to show your face, and then that demonstrate that you are not leaving abruptly the country and all. And these kind of compulsive kind of punishment are also there. And of course pecuniary punishment also, you can weaken a person by hitting at his finances. So pecuniary punishments are those, where some kind of a fine is levied on you, since you are involved in committing the crime, so you pay that fine, and then that is the punishment that can be given to you. This is called a name called pecuniary punishment. And quasi pecuniary punishment is another name given, which is semi pecuniary, we can call punishment, where the offender is denied services that would otherwise be available to him or her. So some services which he is entitled are deprived. They are deprived to him because it is some way affecting his pecuniary accomplishment. So it can be called a semi or quasi kind of a pecuniary punishment. And then the 11th, he calls it as characteristic punishment. So what is that? These are mandating that person uniform be worn by incarcerated offenders. See, in order to discriminate between the normal and incarcerated person, they said, in order to, by looking at him, one should know that, so this will characterize, this qualifies the offender. So they said it is mandatory. If you are a prisoner, if you are behind bars, it should, by wearing some uniform kind of a thing, you will be visible. So people know that you are incarcerated offender, and by looking at your uniform, they can understand that, and they have made that as a mandatory provision. So these are some of the 11 characteristic features that the Beccaria in his because he tries to modify his own theories, and then the modified version, as I said, he coined a different word for that. He said neoclassical, because neo means some new concepts and some recommendations he tries to give. And then he also tries to categorize different punishments, and then he tries to give certain headings for that. And then the punishment should always be proportionate to the thing. And then he also tries to recommend that people who do not exercise their own free will, or the sect of people who are otherwise differently abled people, who may have who may be exhibiting insanity, or people who are minors because of their tender age, they are not able to understand the consequences of the crime, and they have to be given different outlook altogether. And they also say, since they cannot understand the consequences, because a free person, responsible person, a person who can discriminate, being a agnostic, should be able to discriminate what is good and bad. But then because they have some inherent problems, these people are to be given a different privilege altogether. And not only that, even a person who is otherwise a good person, who is doing good deeds, can also become a bad person, because the situation or the circumstances in which he is working can also make him can also turn him to be a wrongdoer, because the situation factor they have not taken into account. But in neoclassical theory, they said situation also plays a very important role in shaping the behavior of the person. So with this, I think that we can talk about the naturalistic kind of school of thought maybe tomorrow, because that can also be called as positive school. And what is it talks about, and then what is the contribution of Lombroso for that? Why are we calling him as the father of the positive school of criminology and all? Probably tomorrow's class, next class, and same timing, I think, same linking. But before we leave, let me just tell you that your TA1 exam, as it is called, Teaching Assessment 1, that is due for us, that we need to complete this week probably. So I want you to suggest one date, so that the date which is convenient to both of us, we'll fix up that date, and we need to conduct this test since all of us are online. So we need to conduct the test by using an app called Socrative type of a platform. There is some procedure involved in it. Probably tomorrow I'll be able to tell you what the procedure is, and then it is a time bound kind of an examination, and we don't intend to give essay type of questions there. This is first exam that you will be appearing, so I wish that this should be MCQ type, and as many as 25 questions, each carrying 1 mark, that will be giving in the Socrative mode, and for which there is a time limit. Before that time you have to complete your exam and then submit, and once only when you push the button submit, it will be registered, and there are different rooms that are to be allotted to you. All that procedure probably will be able to give you in detail tomorrow, and before that please let me know which is the date which is convenient to you, so that I will also make myself free on that day, and we'll allot that particular session only for conducting the exam. So which date is
But
convenient?
Friday is fine. I think everyone agrees. Friday is fine for us.
You please have discussion, because it's not one person, so let there be consensus among you. You can discuss and then post the
Or we can
consensus
have
in the
we can have a poll in the group.
Ma'am, many of us are working, so it is better to have it on Saturday.
then I leave the choice to you, because most of you are
Saturday is the best thing that
most of you are
if
working,
Saturday
that is
best thing, but-
that
yeah.
we understand, but then I can't individually ask each one's opinion, since we have
So
created
then-
a group platform. So you can discuss among yourselves and then come to some consensus and arrive at one date. You please let me know that date to me, so that because I also have other engagements, I should also make myself free to conduct the exam. I have to be there, I have to be allotting rooms for you, and I should upload those questions and all. So all that from my side is also there. So only when you fix the date, all other things will be in place. So probably by tomorrow you should discuss and tell me the date. Not
For
now.
paper two, ma'am also said like next week. It most likely the exams will be held next week. So
I know.
both the papers would be taken mostly on the same day between 9 to 13. She is like given the tentative dates. So in
Both
the
the
next week,
papers money, even for first paper, for my paper also, she tells that same day.
yeah, she said like most likely it would happen like that. But she said like we would tell you after confirming. But it's most likely going to be happen in next week.
Next week, money week is starting from today, isn't it? Today is Monday.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in this week
no,
only
no,
we need to,
next
because
week.
why next week?
That's what she said. That's what I'm letting you know. From
Nene,
9 to
that's
13.
okay.
She said,
That's okay. Because I mean, our group, we the same group, maybe two different faculty are there. So the time which suits her may not suit me or may not suit you also, isn't it? Any day, this week or next week, we have to conduct the exam, isn't it? So we'll have some question bank. How is the idea of preparing a question bank, not only of 25, so encompassing the syllabus, whatever so far has been covered. So we'll have some more question bank, and then let us prepare those answer for those question bank, and it would be better that we discuss that, and then you try to answer independently. Let me see how many of you can answer, because it is with books and all. You can answer those question bank, and then from that we can call out questions. That can be done. Anybody who reads unit 1, so they have to give questions only from that, isn't it?
ma'am, so the syllabus is only the first PPT that you've shared in the group early on when the lecture started.
The causes, consequences also I have given. Isn't it? Menseria we have talked about, actus reus we have talked about, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Causes, consequences, some classical theory and all, whatever we have done today. So most probably I'll be giving from that. So what I try to do is, I'll encompassing the syllabus so far, whatever I have discussed, I'll try to prepare some question bank. Question bank का मतलब यही होगा ना, not only 20, 25. So we'll make some as many as some 50, 30, isn't it? So जितना भी क्वेश्चंस हो आ सके उसमें से उतना ही प्रिपेयर करेंगे ना. तो out of that maybe I'll choose some 25 and try to give you, because it's MCQ type. Is that okay? For others also,
Yes.
for regular students also, we are doing the same thing. So why not we
That is
implement
fine,
the same
ma'am.
for
That is
others also?
It is fine. That's not a problem.
But then you have to tell me the date. That's what I'm keen.
I have already told Saturday, ma'am. The rest depends.
That's okay. You are representing your case, but I am interested in, because tomorrow nobody should say no, nobody
That is fine,
consulted us.
ma'am. We have discussed this. That is fine.
But anyway, by tomorrow, make up your minds and then let me know pakka the date, so that I have to create that app, I have to load the questions, and I have to create rooms for you. Lot many things are there before we conduct the exam. So that requires lot of time. We should not be wasting time over that. And there is a time bound thing.
I had a question. Is there any other PPT apart from what you've already sent on the WhatsApp group? Because I don't think, if it's on Telegram, I joined it later, so I don't have it yet.
So far
From
what
what you
we
were
have covered, so far we have covered the causes, consequences, then we said the crime definition, then what are the essential elements of crime, and in detail we have discussed about actus reus, we talked about mens rea, what are different shades of mens rea, all that I think I have shared already PowerPoints.
Ma'am, the consequences of crime, I don't think it's in the different PPT, right? It's not in the first one, the basic.
So I'll see if I have not shared. I'll try to share.
It's not on.
I'll also exclusively allocate one session for discussing this question bank. Let me prepare some question bank and try to give you that. And out of that, we'll discuss which one are difficult, which you are not able to get answer for that, choice for that. We'll discuss that also, so that everybody attending the class are aware. So what is the question that will appear, and what is the likely answer for that?
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
So we'll
but
do
just
that.
could you just like check if about this PPT, because I don't think it's on the group, so that it's easy for us to make notes also.
Sure. I'll see that, and I'll. I mean, they are not very complicated, very commonsensical, and very simple and easy to understand. But anyway, nevertheless, as I promised, I don't mind sending the PPT. I thought I have put it in the group, but otherwise, if it is not there, I'll ensure that it will be put up in the WhatsApp group. Okay?
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Thank
So
you
for
so much.
today, we'll leave the meeting. And for tomorrow, you have to tell me the date and all. If it is Saturday, you something in WhatsApp group. I want some concrete date and all. I mean, telling one thing online, and then you have not taken consent. These kind of acquisitions I don't want tomorrow. So if the whole class agrees upon one date, let us stick to that date and let us work towards that date, isn't it? Something concrete I want, not one or two people saying and others just keeping mum, and then last minute they say this, nobody asked our consent, it's not convenient, how come that you go by one person's word and all. I mean, these are childlike acquisitions. So I don't want that kind of an acquisition to be there. So let everybody think about it and let them stick on to one date.
Ma'am, I would like to say that I'm just putting a poll in the WhatsApp group of a preferable date. So
ठीक है ये आपस में आप लोग जितना भी डिस्कस करना है उतना डिस्कस कर लेना, बट फाइनली यू हैव टू टेल मी वन डे, दैट्स इट. And that too not very far. The earlier better, isn't it? The earlier it's better. Anyway, we have to complete one unit तो करना ही है. One unit में ही एग्जाम होता है, 1 unit में पार्ट ऑफ इट होते भी परवाह नहीं. So that is only to initially see how much are you able to grasp and how much are you able to reproduce. This is what is the test all about. Nothing more than that.
Okay, ma'am. That's what I'm saying. I'm just putting a poll in the WhatsApp group so that the most preferable answer would be the date.
You are all very technique savvy. I'm a little oldie person. I can't understand these things, Paul and all. So you are next generation people. You understand everything. So do whatever you want to do. But final thing, let me know. That's what I'm saying. Please.
Okay, ma'am.
वो final date हमको.
What's the final date?
Final thing, if I know, I can plan my own things accordingly. That is the thing I am just emphasizing.
Okay, ma'am. Roger. Okay, ma'am.
तो कल फिर मिलेंगे वही टाइम पे, वही लिंक पे. ठीक है?
Okay, ma'am.
राइट
ठीक है मैम. थैंक यू मैम.
राइट
Thank you, ma'am.
राइट.
Thank you, ma'am.
ఒకటొకటి థీరీని చెప్తేనే బాగా చెప్పగలుగుతాను, అన్నీ చెప్తే చెప్పలేకపోతున్నాను. The nature features, extent and scope of this criminology, and then why there is the need for us to study different schools of thought, and how many schools of thought are there, and then what is their basis for propounding such theories, and then do they have any backing of empirical data, or have they done some experimentation, and is there any criticism about each theory, and then how the subsequent theories have tried to rectify or ratify the irregularities or inconsistencies that were found in the previous theories, all that we try to understand. And then we talked about the classical theories of criminology, wherein we said there are initially the three categories, that is before pre-classical kind of a theory, and then there existed a classical kind of a theory. Then we said there was little modification because certain aspects or certain factors were not figuring into the classical theory, so just they try to assume certain things and then try and bring out the required kind of a modification in that, and then try to propound a new theory called a neo classical theory. So we try to understand these, and then we also talked about the vicarious recommendations, how he could make some recommendations, and then how he said the other factors also need to be figured in, and then how law is going to band people, and then what is the basis for social action, and then should it be utilitarian, and how proportionate the punishment should be when a crime has been committed, and whether it should be prompt and certain. All these things, almost 11 to 12 recommendations he gives, and then he also ultimately tries to bring in a lot of in his own assumptions. He tried to modify little, and then he says situation also plays a lot of importance. So he said he also tried to figure in factor in the situation also, and then he says people who are, though they have a free will, if they are not able to exercise their free will by virtue of their incompetences, so he tries to give a little privilege to such people, and then he is classifying them as insane people, or people who are differently abled, or people who cannot by the tender age, who are not able to understand the consequences. So for them he says a different classification altogether has to be there. So these are some of the problems that the classical school has encountered, and accordingly the neoclassical theory has taken its place. Then we talked about vicarious, and then how there are 11 different kind of punishments he tries to specify, and he also say that it is not as a kind of a revenge the punishment should be imposed on the criminal, but it should be as a kind of a deterrent to him, so that others who observe him doing this kind of a thing will also be cautioned enough that if you do this, this is the repercussion that is going to happen. So like that we try to distinguish this. Now let us today talk about the positive school of criminology. Then we also, if time permits, we also talk about the ecological school of criminology, and then what are the criticisms that are faced by the positive school of thought, and हो सके तो थोड़ा biological concept, and what is the role of physiognomy and then phrenology that they are going to play on characterizing the criminal, and then of course anthropology. Then we have the body types, and I mean there are so many theories that we have, but then let us see as per the time. हो सके तो tomorrow and day after also we may dwell upon these things, because there are a lot many theories as such. So we should have a thorough knowledge of these things before we understand what crime is, and then how different crimes are there. It is but natural that as student of criminology as well as forensic science, we need to understand this. Now positive school of criminology, when we talk about, we have to definitely remember a great criminologist of his times, that is Lombroso. He is called Cesare Lombroso, CesareLombroso. So he is the one scientist, one criminologist who has can be called as, I mean, a father of this positive school of criminology. So he propounds lot of assumptions, and then he formulates his own theory, saying that, criminals are nothing but, he is trying to give a definition to the criminal. He says they are nothing but biological throwbacks. He uses this word, biological throwbacks. They are nothing but biological throwbacks given by the society. So he coins a separate word for that, and he says these biological throwbacks are criminals, otherwise called as atavistic, atavistic. This is the word he is going to use. Lombroso is the one who propounds the positive school of criminology, and then he has done lot of empirical data. He tried to study some soldiers who are troublemakers, and then he also tries to study the criminals who are present in Italian prisons and all. And then after making a thorough study on these people, so he propounds a theory called as positive theory, and then he says criminals are nothing but they are the biological throwbacks by the society. And a definite word he coins for that, for describing the biological throwbacks. He uses the word atavistic, atavistic. Now he, as I said, made a lot of studies on these people who are troublesome soldiers, as well as prisoners who are there in Italian prisons, and then he comes out with a very logical kind of a theory. He says, now there are definitely some visible, observable, what are known as physical traits which we can attribute to a criminal behavior. It may look little odd, and all those times they seem to be relevant, because he studied directly on these criminals, on these on these troublemaking soldiers. It was a direct study, isn't it? And it was a positive study. It was a positive study. So it was so objective study and direct study. So hence, this school of thought is also called as positive school of thought. So what are the prominent physical features he tries to identify in all, which are very common in all criminals? So he is trying to list out as many as, say, 6 different characters which he thought that he has observed in all these criminals, so-called, or troublemaking soldiers. So all these 6 characters, one by one, if you see, he says the first thing is starting from the forehead. He says it is a slanting forehead. Unlike normal people who have a presentable kind of a forehead, these people have a little tilted kind of a forehead. He says it's little slanting kind of a forehead. Now the second characteristic which he thinks that he has identified quite prominently is long earlobes, and if at all they are long earlobes, otherwise none at all. So this is another parameter he observes, or rather physical characteristic which he observes, which is tending towards labeling somebody as no criminal. So these are most prominent features. That's what he says, because he's after all doing some direct study, and then it is very objective kind of a study. He can observe, he can measure, he can make a direct study. So this kind of a theory is also called as positive, objective rather. So the third feature he says is a large jaw. Jaw is very large here for these people. And then he says supraorbital ridges, the ridges which are otherwise there on the little above the eyebrow. So we have these supraorbital ridges, very heavy ridges, very prominent ridges. So these people with this character are also, he says, they have a tendency to become criminal, or they are criminals, and then they have this particular physical feature. Then he says hairness, excess hair or no hair. There are two extremes again. So he is talking about parameters which are fully there, which are completely wanting or absent. So one such parameter he says is presence or absence of excess hair, scanty hair or no hair or excessive hair. So this is another fifth parameter he tries to describe. And the last one he says is, the sensitivity towards pain. So some people, extreme side, they are very, very sensitive, extreme sensitive. The other side of the scale, there are people who are who do not show any pain. They have lost this sensitivity to pain. So there are two extremes, like we have discussed for hair, hairness and no hair. Likewise, sensitivity wise also sensitivity towards pain. Uh, some sect of the criminals, they exhibited very extreme sensitivity or emotion towards the pain. Others, they have completely, they were not at all showing, they lack this kind of a sensitivity is what is. So he tries to, these are little observable kind of manifestations as physical parameters. He feels that they are very prominent in these kind of category of soldiers as well as the prisoners who are there incarcerated and put behind bars in Italian prisons.
These are only five, ma'am. So which one is the sixth one?
Parameter, physical parameter you are talking about? I told you the sensitivity. See, pain, they, pain is a kind of a feeling, There is again extreme things. On the right, positive is theory. First is about the forehead. Ha, slanting it is. It's not straight, it is little slanting. And the other parameter physical is earlobe. Pinna bolte na earlobe. The lower most part of the pinna is called earlobe. So they have abnormal long earlobes. That's what he observed. So there is again from there it started the extreme. So either somebody has very long earlobe or none. So he is talking about two extremes here. And one more he says, jaw, very large jaw. The other one is supraorbital. In skull, it is little prominent. When you observe the skull, it is more prominent. Even that gets reflected on the face also. But then we use this more often with supraorbital ridge is a common word which we use for describing the ridge that is above the orbit. Orbit is a pit. Orbital is eye. Orbital is a pit. Above the pit there is a little prominent ridge. So what he says is this particular parameter or trait is more prominent in criminals. That's what he says. And the last one being the sensitivity. So people normally have sensitivity when you are pain or when you are asked to touch or by accident, even if you touch some hot body also, you feel that there is a reflex for that, there is a reaction for that. So that kind of a sensitivity is completely excess in one category and completely lacking in the other category. So they are exhibiting both the extremes. That's what he says. So he tries to list out that these are little observable parameters. So he says people with these kind of abnormalities which also get reflected in their behavior. So he is trying to correlate the external features of a person, so-called the criminal, with his behavior. So behavior is being linked with the external character. And he says this is a direct study which he says on the subject involved. And then it is also a kind of a objective kind of a study. So hence the name positive is given to this school of thought or school of criminology. So on the basis of, again, as I told you, Lombroso is the one who propounded this positive theory, and he made a direct study on these individuals, and the method is very, very objective and also positive. So hence the name positive school of thought. But then slowly he tried to change his own assumptions, whatever assumptions he made. So he tries to little bring in some modification in that. Instead of, he says it's not a single cause, but then he strongly believes that there are chain of interrelated causes. He says not one cause is responsible for a criminal behavior, but then there are a battery of interrelated causes. All cumulatively they are trying to shape the character of a person, and more so the criminal behavior of a person. Now, as I said, Lombroso tries to classify. So after he modified his theory, he just comes out. He just comes out with three different categories of criminals. Major, of course, three major categories. So he tries to give them a different name. Now there are born criminals. He strongly believes that they are born criminals. So the name that he gives, we have already discussed in the beginning of the class, as atavist, ATAVIST, or they are otherwise called as biological throwbacks. So they are either biological throwbacks or they can be given. He coins a different new name. So he says they are atavists, ATAVIST, and he tries to classify people as insane criminals, those who cannot just apply their brain, or they have a feeble brain, or they have some instability in the brain, and also insane criminals he calls them, second category. The third category he names as criminaloids. I mean, the third category simply says that these people have a propensity, high probability, given a situation, an opportunistic situation, if it is given to them, they can indulge in criminal activity, is the third category. Which category, he gives a separate name for that. He says they can be called as criminaloids, CRIMINALOIDS. Criminaloids is the name that he gives to the third category. So according to him, that criminals are born, and the second category says people who are insane type of criminals, and then the third category which he says is these people have a propensity. Only thing is the opportunity. That means given some situation, opportunistic situation, or given some kind of a suitable circumstances, then these people definitely indulge in criminal activity. So such people who have the propensity or probability to become criminals, he uses or coins a different word called criminaloids. So these are the three kinds of categories. Now, unlike Lombroso, whom we consider is the father of positive school of criminology, there is another great criminologist by name Ferri, 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 Enrico Ferri, ENRICO, Enrico Ferri. He is another, criminologist who also says that biological to ठीक है, but then apart from biological, physical, there are other factors which we have to take into account. He gives the name as social factors. So he says social factors are equally important, and we need to take them into account. We have to take these factors into. 1 second, there is power off. I have to use switch on to the other one. I am running through mobile, so just wait for a second. Am I audible now through mobile? Good sound. Am I audible? I am not.
Yes, ma'am, very much audible.
हाँ ठीक है, but you have to bear with me. There is no power. I am trying to run it through mobile. I can't even see at times, but anyway, no problem. So we are trying to understand the classification that is being. I think my own voice I am able to reverberate in it.
Ma'am, it's echoing. Your voice is echoing, ma'am.
There is an echo. I think I am hearing my own voice. Let me just rectify it. Wait for a second. 1 second, wait. I think that echo thing has gone. Is my voice clear? ठीक है. So what we are trying to understand is, apart from the Lombroso positive type of school of criminology, now I told there is another criminologist by name Enrico Ferri. Enrico Ferri is, again he emphasizes more on social factors. He said, ठीक है, biological and then physical appearances are okay, but then there is, apart from these things, this is a interrelatedness of all social, economic, and then political factors. These factors also need to be taken into account whenever we talk of the criminal behavior of a person. So he says interrelated. These factors are interrelated. What are the three factors? He says, apart from the biological factors, he says social, economic, and political factors are also have to be taken into consider, and they are equally important. Biological, to Ambrosio, he is not denying that, but then he says, since there is an interrelationship between these factors, we need to figure in these factors also. So he goes on giving a detailed account of what constitute the physical factor and what constitute the individual factor, and of course what is the social factor in detail he is trying to give. Now, what are the physical factors? Of course, the race, geography, temperature, वगैरह of that place, and all. These are physical factors. Now, when it comes to criminal individual factors, he says, of course, age, sex, and then other psychological. What is the psyche of that person? Psychological factors or variables also can be considered as individual factors. So, out of the three factors, which he says, social, economical, and political. So he stopped talking about the physical features like race, geography, and then temperature of that locality. And when it comes to individual factors, so he is trying to list out age, sex, and then of course the psyche of the person, or otherwise called the psychological attributes of that person. And third comes the social factors. Now, the population of that particular locality, whether it is densely populated or scarcely populated, what is the population status of that locality, then what is the religion. Are all the people in the society following one religion, or a multiple religion is there? How they are respecting each one's religion and all. This is, are they showing this secular kind of a thing? That also has to be figured into. And of course, when you talk of religion, we also have to talk about the culture. So these are the three interrelated kind of factors that we need to take into account in order to study the full behavior, the holistic behavior of a person. If you want to understand, he says, and how it can turn to criminal behavior. So initially you need to understand the behavior, and then these changes, social changes, if there are there, how that can give an opportunity to the person who can otherwise take the opportunity and then turn into a criminal, is what is the essence of this theory. And he goes on saying that no, crimes can be controlled. Not that they are beyond our control and we can't let there be anarchy and we have to fold our hands and look at sky and then we feel helpless and all. This is not the essence of the theory. What he says is there are ways and means to control the crime also, and then he strongly believes that social change alone can bring in that kind of a change. So when he talks about social change, he lists out a few kind of parameters in which he strongly believes that there need to be some social change. So what are the things he is trying to list out? He says people should be given some subsidized houses. Those who deserve it, at least those who are at the below that particular level of standard of living, they should be given, he says, subsidized houses. So that is one kind of a great social change. And then if somebody wants to control population, if somebody wants to adopt some birth control measure, they should be given that access. So birth control also, he says, is one of the social changes that can bring in some control. Thereby you can control, because more population, more propensity, some sector of people can turn to criminals. So the first element that you need to control is control the population. Controlling the population, you can use birth control measures, and then you can control the population. And then there should be freedom for marriage. So it should be at my will. If I want to marry somebody, I should have the freedom to marry somebody. So freedom for marriage. And then if I am not happy with my marital life, and then if I feel that there are a lot of troubles out of that, and if both of us yes, what is happening?
Ma'am, your voice is breaking.
My voice is breaking. So, is it still breaking? I am holding the mobile very near to my mouth. Is it still giving some, noise breaking?
Now it is better.
It is better because I just try to keep the mobile little away. Maybe that is the reason why it is breaking. But anyway, I think I'm a little better now. Why is it a little better now, I suppose? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
हाँ ठीक है हाँ तो what he says is we can control this crime menace, but provided there need to be some change which he calls social change, and then how to bring in that kind of a social change. So there are some controls which he tries to bring in, so giving subsidized house to the needy, and then somebody like to have birth controls, that should be option should be given, and then my option for marriage should be very free and I should have the freedom to choose my own partner. Then if I am not happy with the partner, or if my marital life is little strained and all, I should have the option for going for divorce, and public recreation facilities, so on and so forth. He keeps on giving a long list of what are all the things which come under the social change that will definitely control the crime. He keeps on giving that, and he has written a very good book called Sociologia Criminale. Sociologia Criminale. Sociologia Criminal. So this is the book he writes, and then in that book he mentions 5 different classes of criminals again. See, we have seen Lombroso dividing the criminals into 3 categories, isn't it? So we said social, throwbacks or atavists. He said criminaloids, he said, and an insane. Like that, this man Ferry also tries to, in his book, which I called, which I said, Sociologia Criminal. In that book, he tries to classify all the criminals again into 5 different classes. So what are those 5 different classes? He still goes, seconds the opinion of Lombroso in saying that there are born criminals, or they have a high instinct of becoming criminals. So that is the first category, he says. Then the second category, he says, like Lombroso, he also says, he seconds the opinion that there are insane criminals, mentally ill criminals. And then the third category, he comes out as, they have passion for committing a crime. That means they are very chronic, they have these chronic mental ailments or problems. Emotionally, they are at a very high emotional state, and they have a prolonged chronic mental problem. So they are called passion type of criminals. And criminals who are not habitual criminals, but occasionally now and then they indulge in crimes. So such criminals, he is classifying them as vocational criminals. And then we have the fifth category called the habitual criminal. So in that book of Sociologia Criminal, he tries to categorize all the criminals into 5 categories, and then he says, 2 points or 3 points he is in full agreement with the Lombroso theory that born criminals are there, insane criminals are there. But then third category, he says these people have a great mental problem, and it is a very chronic kind of a prolonged problem, and these are people with a lot of high emotionally, they are rather, we can call them emotional fools. They are the ones whom he calls as passion criminals. And the fourth category, he says, they are occasional, since they are doing, we can categorize them as the occasional criminals. Of course, the last category are the people, they are habituated, that doing a crime has become so ingrained in them, and it has become a habit for them. Given a chance, they want to do some criminal activity or the other. So such category of criminals are put under the last category, which he calls as the habitual criminals. Even today in modern criminology also, we say habitual offenders and all, and for repeaters we have a different kind of punishment, and then that punishment is going to be a little severe, and it will be for many more years, or rather double the term what we give for the first timer. So we still have that concept even in modern kind of criminology also. And we have to talk about Raffaello Garofalo. Garofalo. So he is another criminologist. So Raffaello, Raffaello Garofalo, Garofalo. He is another, criminologist. So he says how society could guarantee the survival of the fittest through criminal law and penal practices. See, this is, we know that survival of the fittest is the, Darwin kind of a proposition. Now he says that society could guarantee, how can it guarantee us the survival of the fittest through criminal law, not through selection and all, but then he says criminal law and penal law practices, how are they guaranteeing us the survival of the fittest? So his theory is, he presumes or assumes society as a natural body, and crimes or offences are against this natural law of the nature. So society, if you feel that it is a natural body, any crimes or offences which are committed are against the law of nature. So this is the definition he tries to give. And then criminal actions are against the nature. What he says is whatever actions these people are doing, they are quite against the nature. And the natural crime violates two basic fundamental sentiments of the people. He tries to classify. Raffaello goes on dividing people based on the sentiments that they have towards people. He tries to divide the sentiments into two categories. So he believes that people can be divided into two categories based on the sentiments that they try to show to the others. So he says one is pity, the other one is probity. Pity and then probity. Pity, pity, probity, probity. So what is the meaning of pity? Now this is a kind of sentiment. If somebody has got the disgust, a feeling of disgust, sentiment of disgust, against what? Against the voluntary inflictions of suffering on others. If somebody voluntarily inflicting some kind of an injury or some kind of a suffering on others, if this sect of people with this particular trait of pity, if they happen to witness them, so they have got an internal kind of what is known as a revulsion or kind of a disgust towards such people. On whom they have disgust, on people who are trying to voluntarily inflict some kind of an injury or suffering on others. So that is a kind of pity, and so first disgust, out of that this element of pity is coming. So he gives a name pity for that, pity, for such a sentiment. So I said there is another kind of sentiment also, probity. Now what is probity? So this is only a kind of a respect that I have got for the property rights of the others. So I know that I also have some property rights, but then I also respect the sentiment that other persons other than me, there are other set of people also, and they too have this kind of rights, property rights. Since they are also are given this kind of right of property, let me respect their property. Even if that instinct of stealing somebody else is the conscious is pricking me that, like I have rights of my property, on my own property, the others do have their right on the property. So the respecting somebody's property rights is what is called probity. So this man Raffaello again propounds two sentiments. All human beings, they have these two kinds of sentiments towards other human beings. One is pity, the other one is probity. Pity is talking about a sentiment and emotion. When somebody is trying to, because I have this pity element to a great extent, and I happen to witness somebody inflicting some kind of an injury or some kind of a suffering on the other person. So the moment I try to see this, the moment I happen to witness this, I try to develop some kind of a hatred or disgust. I don't call that as a hatred, it is kind of a disgust. Or we can also call that as a revulsion, revulsion. So this kind of a feeling automatically gets generated in me. So then I am supposed to, I am described as a person with a sentiment of pity. The other one is probity. Probity is talking about the rights of property. So, a person with this kind of a sentiment, probity sentiment, will always have a feeling that, when the constitution or other social instrument, if it got some rights which are given to me, similarly, the property rights are vested in others also. So, let me also respect those rights, and let me be under that control, that when I can when somebody can violate my rights, I can also violate their, or if somebody is respecting my rights, I should reciprocate. I also should respect their property rights, is what is the distinction between the pity and then the probity. And of course he tries to give a scale for that and all, and in spite of all the good that it has got, but then there are criticisms again, because the new water should give pave way for the current waters. I mean, new water, old water should give pave way for the new water, something like that. So there are some criticism constructive even for positive school of thought. Now what they say is, crime, after all, is an essential product of social organization, but initially the positive school of thought have just ignored these sociological aspects of criminal behavior. So that is the first and fundamental, foremost kind of a criticism that has been meted out to the positive school of thought. Now, statistically, if you try to see and then try to draw some conclusions, so one factor has become very clear in this proposition, that we are not able to distinguish there is no clear demarcation. We are not able to objectively try to distinguish between criminals and non-criminals. So the fact is still remained highly speculative. So when something is very speculative, so based on that we cannot just try to discriminate people and then divide them between criminals, non-criminals. This kind of a lacuna was also there, and it is one of the prime criticism that has been pointed out for positive school of thought. And there is one other English, Goring Bulke, there is another criminologist, and then he also tries to study some convicts who are English convicts, as many as 3,000, and for about 8 years, and then he also confirms the hypothesis that criminals are biologically inferior. This is the conclusion he draws. And of course, he did not find any physical criminal type there, but then nevertheless he said, biologically, if you try to compare a person, normal person, and a person who is criminal, so definitely criminals are biologically inferior. So this is what Charles Goring tries to propound, and then he studied as many as some 3,000 convicts, English convicts, and then vis-a-vis a control group who are otherwise normal males, and then he draws this particular kind of a conclusion that yes, criminals are unlike normal people, so they are little abnormal in that they are biologically inferior. That is the conclusion he draws. And one more criminologist who also has some kind of a negative feeling, or he says there are a little inherent problems in understanding or rather he also is a great critic of the positive school of thought. So what is that he is trying to propound is, behavior is the behavior is learned. What he says is, it is a learned, it's not, no criminal is a born criminal. Like any character, any behavior, over a period of time, it is a learned behavior, isn't it? When all behaviors can be learned, why not criminal behavior? That is his theory. So Gabriel Tarret, he is the one who tries to say that, bring in some logic, and then tries to say that, so no, I don't believe that, criminals are born. But behaviors, as we see, they are slowly learned over a period of time. So likewise, like any behavior, criminal behavior is also one kind of a deviant behavior rather, but that can also be learned. That's what he says. And then he proposes an association and learning as an explanation of crime in contrast to the biological approaches to Lombroso. So biological, he says, it doesn't work. So we need to associate and then learning. These are the explanation he tries to give. And then rather biological approach where there is, he sees a definite kind of a flaw. All biological approaches as given by Lombroso are not 100% correct, but then there is this association type of learned behaviors are also there which are responsible for the criminal behavior. That's what he says. And then he refers the criminals as social excrement. 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 They are thrown outs. So the other person has used the word throwbacks, and then this man uses the word, social excrement. What we try to purge out, isn't it? They are such people, unwanted, a kind of a thing, waste material that can be better thrown away. That is called excrement, isn't it? So he uses this word since they are this behavior they have learned it slowly, the hard way. So they are no more wanted by the society. See, isn't it? When you don't want something, when you feel that it is some rubbish, what you try to do, you try to throw it out, isn't it? So in the form of some waste material like sweat and then the fecal matter, we try to excrete from our bodies. So similarly, these people are social excrement. They need to be thrown out, isn't it? That's the theory he proposes. And then he says court's function is that, to determine whether the person is guilty or otherwise, and then what is the degree of criminal responsibility that can be attributed to this, it will be decided not by the judges, but then he says a committee of doctors should determine this. So he tries to divide these two things. So court has the functionary that after the trial and or their job is to say whether somebody is guilty or not guilty. That is, he is acquitted, he is innocent, isn't it? And he says the job of fixing the degree of responsibility, he says, lies on the doctors, and that too a committee of doctors have to decide what is the degree of his responsibility. And the opinion that disposition should be on a psychological basis is the one he strongly believes in. So it should have a psychological basis. And he says behavior is learned and there is an association of learning, and then he tries to explain this by saying that the criminals are social excrements, and then there are functionaries, judiciary is there, courts are there. Their primary job is to conduct the trial, and at the end of the trial they can discriminate people who are guilty and then people who are innocent, and to fix the degree of responsibility. It is not the, responsibility we mean here the criminal responsibility, the criminal liability rather, culpability rather. These days we use modern times we use these words. Those days they say, this responsibility, criminal responsibility, they said is not vested. Fixing that is not vested with the court or rather the judiciary. But then he says a team of committed doctors, they need to do this, determine this degree of responsibility is what he says. And it is more, this, in his opinion, the disposition should be based more on the psychological aspects rather than on the biological aspect. This is about different people who has thrown some criticism on the positive school of thought or positive theory of criminology. Now coming to ecological school of criminology, say this is talking about the environment. This is talking ecology, we mean the environment, isn't it? So when environment is good, when you are grown up in an environment which is very suitable for you, to groom you up to become a very good civilian, so that means ecology or their environment or your ecosystem is playing a very, very vital role in shaping your character. So the propounders of this school of thought or the school of criminology, they say the and since Chicago Department, University of Chicago propounded this theory, it is also called as Chicago School of Criminology. The Ecological School of Criminology is otherwise also called as the Chicago School of Criminology. The reason is that the University of Chicago attempted to pinpoint environmental. They are the ones who tried to figure in the environmental factors apart from the other factors which we have talked about in the previous schools of thought. Then these school of thought, which is called the ecological school of thought, the first people who try to do this is the University of Chicago. Hence the name Chicago School of Criminology is also given to this kind of a school of thought. Now they say environmental factors need to be associated definitely with the crime, and then determine the relationship between among these factors. So they are the ones, Clifford R. Shaw is the one, he's worked as a probationer and then parole officer, and then he regularly comes in contact with these convicts, and then he has done a lot of studies on them, and more so especially these juvenile delinquents. So he had that opportunity, and then he believed that the problem of juvenile delinquency had its origin in the juvenile detachment from the conventional groups. So there are groups which conform to the societal norms, and at the same time there are some conventional groups, they don't believe in this group, they detach themselves from these conventional groups, and they are the ones who have some psychological abnormalities in addition to the biological abnormalities, and then this particular detachment is the initial factor that is leading to what is known as the problem of juvenile delinquency. This is what is the ecological school of criminology. Now it says apart from biological, apart from sociological, there are environmental factors. The environment you are in which you are grown up is the one which is the main thing. That's what he says. Now, why there is also a lot of empirical data supporting this theory. So Mr. Clifford R. Shaw, as I just told you, that he is the one, he is a probation and parole officer. So it so happens that in the regular duty he comes across so many convicts, and that too his fashion is for this juveniles, so hence he is more attached to that. And then what he found in juvenile delinquency is the origin or the root is in detachment, juvenile getting detached from the conventional groups, and that is the primary factor rather than any biological or psychological abnormality. That is what he says. Now, delinquency areas become the concern for this man, and then who developed this particular theory, and delinquency rates are high in the center of Chicago. So he is area wise also he is trying to discriminate between urban and then central portion, and then the so-called rural and all. He tries to take different groups from different locations, and then he also comes out with other socio-economic factors. What he says is the problem of adverse conditions of urban living. He tries to recognize few of them, and then he tries to list in those things. So he says out of those things, the adverse conditions, what he says is, one is economic insecurity. That is one point he says, and then insecurity as one hand, instability is on another hand, and urban social institution. So there is always an insecurity, there is always a economic instability as far as the urban social institutions are concerned. So he says this is one of the most adverse condition of the urban living that is squarely responsible for the to build in the propensity to become a delinquent, and that too because he is the one who tried to do more of his studies on juvenile delinquency, and then that is the point he comes in, strongly believes in. Another thing is when we talk of individual or social efforts to become adjusted, to the requirements and pressure of the urban social and economic conditions. So there are some conditions, both social as well as economic conditions that are prevailing in urban. They are acting as pressure points, they are acting as pressures, and then with this pressure the individuals, they are not able to fit in or not able to adjust to these requirements, and this particular maladjustment, as we can call it, is the one which is responsible for making individuals little they become little maladjusted, because they feel there is an instability inbuilt in the system, economic system, and they also feel so insecure that any time anything may happen. So these are the conditions which are very, very adverse to us, and these conditions are not bringing in any kind of a security into the system. This is most unstable. It may lead to any other adverse situations. So this is making creating lot of problems which are adverse in nature for anybody to live in urban setup. So this is what he tries to understand. And there is another concept called concentric circles theory concept throughout the city that describe where crime and juvenile delinquency occur, began when the University of Chicago sociologists began studying delinquency. So when they started doing this, they try to locate some circles, concentric circles, where in one particular area why is it so prevalent, in certain other areas why there is low delinquency. Like that they try to draw some kind of a thing. They proposes that there is concentric circles built, one circle built into the other one. They share one concentric circles by definition are the ones which share a single center, and then as the circles grow in size, there are more inbuilt kind of circles. So it only says that they are all interlinked, delinquency and then locality in which they are placed, the environment in which they are grown up also have a lot of implication, and that is primarily responsible for shaping the criminal behavior is one such school of thought. Then there is another context, situational context for a crime. So what do you mean by situation? Situation is nothing but it refers to the immediate setting. What is the immediate setting in which you are there, which is trying to change your which is trying to change your behavior, and these are called situations. And situational analysis is the one which refers to search for regularities in the relationships between behavior and then situation. For example, there is a neighborhood, isn't it? Neighborhood is one situational context that can influence anybody, that can also encourage the occurrence of a crime. So these theories assume that there are always people around who will commit a crime if given a chance. See, if I am unnoticed, if I can, like in movies and all, Mr. India kind of movies we have seen, if I am not visible, so if my actions are not being observed, whether it be criminal or otherwise or antisocial, whatever name you would like to give, so if I do it without being noticed by somebody, isn't it? That's a great opportunity for me. That is favoring me. That situation is favoring me, isn't it? So given a chance, each one of us have that instinct in our mind, in our brain. So if I do something, if I am not noticed, if I am unnoticed, I can do it very safely, isn't it? So this kind of a thing he says, because situation dictate terms. It is not the intrinsic behavior that we have inside, nothing else. Situation warrants. So whenever there is an opportunistic situation, whenever the situation is very convenient for me, given a chance, each one of us would like to commit one antisocial thing or the other. So situation context is the parameter for crime. So given a chance, as I said, each one of us, and people are ready, all kind of people are always around us, so they are the ones given a chance, let me do this. And he says they don't have any motivation to do it, so they are doing it because situation is favoring him to do it. So that is the kind of thing. Motivation, he says, absolutely doesn't have any kind of a thing. It doesn't play that major role when compared to the opportunity. So when everything is so favorable for me, why not I take the advantage of the situation is what is situational context of a crime. Then these theories sometimes are also called, because each one of us wait for an opportunity, so these theories sometimes they are also called as opportunity theories of crime. So the same situational crime, we can also say opportunity kind of a theory of a crime. Why? Because people wait for the opportunity. So hence it gets the name as opportunity theory of crime also. Now there are again in the same Chicago school, which is otherwise also called as a gold mine, that continues to enrich criminology even today. So that is another good thing about school, Chicago School of, otherwise environmental school of thought. Now, there are again two famous criminologists, Meyer and then Mithi. These are the two, Meier and then Miethe are the two, criminologists who said, they have given a very good wording for that. There exists a kind of what is known as symbiotic. I mean, each one depending on the other. So mutually, they are dependent on each other. So this is called symbiotic in biological terminology. So he says that these two proponents, they say that there exists a kind of a relationship, which he describes it as a symbiotic kind of a relationship between conventional and illegal activities. So there are some confirmed and approved kind of a behavior, activity, and on the other side, in contrast, there are illegal contacts. So these are so dependent one on the other, we can almost say there is a kind of a symbiotic relationship that exists between these two. What are these two extreme activities? One is the conventional approved kind of an activity, the other one is called the illegal activity. So what he says is they are inseparable. Symbiotic means the one entity cannot exist independent of the other. There is such a close relatedness between these two entities, we call such relationship as symbiotic. That means, what are in symbiotic relationships? The conventional vis-a-vis the undesired or unwarranted illegal activity. So they are inseparable. In one word we can say they are inseparable. They are into such a relationship which is called symbiotic. One cannot exist in the absence of the other. That's what is the meaning of symbiotic association between the conventional and then illegal activities. So thus criminologists must look to the social context to understand the parallel processes by which victim comes to experience the risk. So victim is at a very disadvantageous position. So they are experiencing the risk of a crime, and the offender on the other side, they are highly motivated to commit the crime. So these two are intricately related. One is, because of the context, because of the social context, because of the situation, the victims are at a very high risk. They are at a high risk, and they are the victims, isn't it? So they are experiencing a lot of risk of the crime. On the other side are the parties who are called the offenders. They are into the symbiotic kind of an association with the so-called victims, and then they are highly motivated. They are highly motivated to bent upon committing this kind of an activity. So these two parties are inseparable, and they are in the symbiotic relationship. Thus, that part of a theory is propounded by Meyer and then Mithi. That is Meier is the name of one criminologist, and the other criminologist being Miethe, Mithi, Meyer and Mithi. These are the two propounders of the situational kind of a context kind of a thing. So about the theories which are there for physical appearance, body shapes, shape of the skull, shape of the face and all, and what are the hereditary that is going to be there, and then what is criminal anthropology, and then how body theory, Sheldon, who propounded the body types, and then even from the embryo side we have ectoderm, endoderm, mesoderm. Accordingly, people's characters also can be called ectomeric, endomeric, that kind of a nomenclature he is trying to give. So regarding other theories of criminology, probably I think we'll talk about it tomorrow same time. And I hope every one of you has got the TA1 timetable. Has it been shared with all of you before we leave
Not
the
yet,
meeting?
ma'am. We have not seen.
He keeps one. Otherwise, I'll share that. I have no issue. I have already given the
Please.
time also. I have not given, rather, it is the headquarters who tries to pass it on to me. And they say it is, since the paper is common for all the PG diploma pursuing candidates. So the 9th is the date that is given, and the timing that is given is, I told you already, 11:30 to 12:15. During that period, we are supposed to conduct the online platform kind of an examination, MCQ wala type question that we will be giving, and it is some 25 questions will be given. For that, options will be thrown up. All that you need to do is, when we say that you have to log in, and then some rooms are allocated, you will be going into that room, money, not physical room, the online room will be given to you. You will log into those rooms when I give the number of that rooms. And the platform is called as Socrative type of a platform app we need to download. So all that instructions regarding that probably will share in a day or two. So you have to be punctual. You can't, I mean, if you are late, you may lose track of things, because it's on online. When online will be live, when it is suddenly it gets disconnected and all, there are lots of ifs and buts. And since it is in the office hours, I don't want to conduct it in the regular class time, 6 to 7. I told you already that particular day 6 to 7 class will not be there. That is on 9th, it will not be there. Rather, it will be in the morning session from 11:30 to 12:15. It will be there. A question bank of 25 will be given to you. You need to, it is an MCQ type of exam. You need to tick it, and then once you have done with that exam, you have to submit, or over कुछ ऐसा button तो होगा, you need to submit that. Only then your answers get reflected into my platform. So once that is done, leisurely I'll put marks and all, and once that is done, I have to upload that in the ERP. So many activities are associated with this single act of writing the exam and all. So we'll share that question bank to you, because everything is, once I say open.
PPT that you told that you will be sharing.
I'll do that. I'll do immediately after this session. What I'll do is couple of things. One is share the question bank to you with regard to the S1 P1. So far, whatever has been covered from that portion, I'll try to call out some questions, 25 in number. Then I'll try to give you same questions by and large. I don't say similar type of questions, some modification, just to have an understanding. I'll call that as a question bank. I don't say the same questions will appear. Question bank I try to give more in number, rather. Now, instead of 25, I may like to give some 40 questions and all. So meanwhile, you can, the PPTs are already shared. If not shared earlier, I'll do that now after the session. Then prepare an answer for that, and you be ready, and then you also can brush up your knowledge about that. And regarding the platform and all, I told you that I am not that much clear about that. But anyway, I'll make it sure that I'll understand it, and then pass on that kind of knowledge to you, to all of you, so that there is no problem in starting the exam and then finishing it. It's a time bound kind of an exam. So repeatedly I am saying that. Otherwise, you cannot say that I am running out of time. This is only tick mark. If you know the answer, it takes even a second, not even a second to complete. If you are unaware of an answer, of course, it may take days or years together. So same question you will linger on, and you will not be able to answer that, and you cannot go further also. So these are very easy questions. I don't think it will be difficult for anybody to answer that. And with this instruction, I think things are clear to you. So should we leave the meeting for today?
Yes, ma'am. 40 minutes, 45 minutes should be okay for 25 questions. That's
It all again and relative. You are learned and you are following regularly, and then you also study, and then you are little experience. It is easy for you, and then you can complete not even within 25 minutes, isn't it? For those you try to recollect, then try to say is A correct or B correct, or should I close my eyes and then go on tick marking, and for such people, you give one day also, they'll not be able to complete the exam. So it's all relative. So we need to at least make some attempt to study. At least, one unit is nothing when you compare to the entire paper. One unit, and that too half unit, is nothing, isn't it? And they are not a big rocket science kind of a thing that you will not be able to understand. Simple logical things that you need to just remember. Once, if you study, you may not understand, give 2-3 readings to it, then it becomes so easy for you to understand. Anyway, I'll share all that. Just give me some time for that. Before the exam, definitely sufficient time in advance I'll be giving that. And once I give the question bank, the ball is in your court, and it is your preparation, how well you prepare and all. That's all your thing. Now, the platform, please remember, it's called Socrative type of platform. We need to upload the app and all, do the rest of the things. So for today, we'll leave the meeting.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Right. Okay. Recording this. డీటెయిల్స్ చెప్తుంటే రిపీటెడ్గా ఎక్కువ టైం పడుతుంది కదా, ఎందుకంటే
అయింది
ఆల్మోస్ట్ మాటలు వద్దు నాకు.
5:53 అయింది.
ఇందులో మరి అలాగే కనిపిస్తుంది. Good afternoon, rather good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Amongst the students, are there PG diploma for DNA? Or some students who opted for that stream also?
Ma'am, crime scene management. I am from
No,
crime scene
not
management.
crime scene management. I'm talking about PG diploma in DNA forensics.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm only just wondering. I have inquired yesterday also about your receipt or non-receipt of timetable. You are all in receipt of timetable for exam?
No, ma'am, not repeated.
I'm only wondering, they have mentioned only 3 streams, fingerprints, crime scene management, and then documents. Baki ka aur bhi hai na, DNA hai, and ballistics also is, I think we do have one more stream. But anybody who opted for ballistics, PG diploma in ballistics? Hello? Is there anybody who joined the stream of forensic ballistics among the group who have joined? Should I presume that there is nobody? Admit. So should we resume the class or wait?
Ma'am, only 7 people joined. So we
I
should
don't
wait.
understand. We'll wait for another 5 minutes then.
5 minutes. 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 5 minutes.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
yes.
Let's wait for 5 minutes.
But anyway, I'll share this.
ఇట్టే పంపించాను.
See, whatever you have asked for the PPTs of earlier sessions, I think I have already shared. You can check it again, and then in case if you have not received, you can just tell me again.
PDF కూడా పంపించాను.
PDF and whatever notes I am trying to, because for that I have not prepared any PPT. The crime theory is part of it. I have not prepared any. I am yet to prepare. But nevertheless, I think I have shared the PDF for that. But the remaining classes for which I have taken through PPT, I think I have already shared that. Are you all in receipt of that? Did you check?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I
Yes,
checked.
ma'am.
It is there.
हाँ, तो क्वेश्चंस का अभी हमारे पास तो काफ़ी टाइम है. 9th को हमारा लग रहा ना 11:30 से 12:15 तक. सो वी हैव सम टाइम विथ अस. सो we'll share that, what you call the question bank or whatever. So that platform also will tell you what exactly is the procedure for that. You are able to understand it is little, these theories and all are little abstract and all. So any point of time if you have not understood, please feel free to again raise issues or raise questions so that it can be discussed once again. I hope these are all, little commonsensical. Rather, each one they have got their own, perception for that, and they try to propound their own theories and all. Maybe the wording that they use is something different, but then by and large, the essence of all the theories is one and the same. Either circumstances or the nature of the person or the society, how it looks at them, or the ecology in which they are grown, or the ethnology that they are brought up in. So they are the ones who are going to decide the behavior of a person. So when they can mold any behavior, why not the criminal behavior? Because criminal behavior, when one school of thought, they said it's all criminals are born, and there are insane criminals. And criminals, people have the propensity, those who have the propensity given a opportunistic situation, and if the offender is highly motivated, then they say they may turn to the criminal behavior. So different school of thoughts have different perception, and some have empirical backing for that, some do not have empirical backing for that. So that way some have depended on objective testing. So some have taken psychoanalytical techniques like Sigmund Freud and all, and they have taken those things. So like that, each criminologist have got their own theories to propound. So for us, at least important theories we need to know. So that is the reason why I'm a little going slow and trying to make you understand these aspects in a slow pace rather in details. So today I think we have to start the physical appearance theories that are dependent or related to the physical appearance. Now, the oldest scientific approach we can say is this, and the physical parameters are the biological rather abnormalities. So the theory strongly propounds that when you try to compare people who are criminals, abnormal, or vis-a-vis the normal people, so they say definitely some observable distinguishing features will definitely demarcate a normal person from an abnormal person, rather a criminal vis-a-vis the non-criminal kind of a thing. So they said physically if you observe, the root cause for physical abnormality, again they'll say, has got a root in biological thing. So what is that they are trying to say is only criminals, they are little different when compared to the non-criminals. In what aspects? If you see them, they are little different, not only, but at the same time they are also abnormal, or we can say they are little defective, or they are little inferior. So these are all the biological attributes. Biological attributes are getting reflected in physical abnormality also. They are trying to correlate the relationship between the physical appearance and then what is internally biologically that is being dictated. so that externally they are appearing little different. So this is the oldest scientific approach, because they are trying to measure, look at it, and then trying to formulate the theory. So it is also, though oldest, but still is scientific. So biological inferiority. See, they said biologically they are inferior and defective, and that is leading to certain physical characters. So whatever inferiority that is there inbuilt in their biological system, whatever defect that is there inbuilt, so that is leading, or that is manifesting itself into certain observable, what you call, physical characters. That is quite responsible for somebody to become criminal, and he is little different from the non-criminal. So that is the the essence of the theory. And physically what is appearing is only a symptom, that is inferiority. The main symptom that distinguishes a person of a normal nature from a person who is abnormal, or who is rather inferior. They are calling people who are born inferior, or whose physical parameters are reflecting their biological inferiority, is the one they say that is responsible for distinguishing people from normal, abnormal, rather criminal and non-criminal. And they have also introduced some studies like physiognomy and then phrenology. These are the two different words they try to introduce. And then the physiognomy, they PHYSIOGNOMY, physiognomy. So this is what they say is, people are judged, people are identified, people are judged based on the people's character from appearance of the face. So by looking at the face, you can judge people, you can judge their characters. So what are all the characters they are trying to look at it? Not all characters, a major very conspicuous characters they try to list in, and then they say the person or the individual can be judged. One can judge the people based on the physical character, that is the appearance. Now what kind of parameters are being observed? Beardlessness, beardfulness. When a male person who doesn't have a beard, so it is little abnormal. So you can assess something out of the physical appearance. Likewise, a female by rule or by nature are not supposed to have any beard. If some beardness appears in females, so that has to be looked as an abnormality. Rather, that person can be looked as an inferior person. So we can attribute the criminality to them, is what is the essence of physiognomy. Physiognomy is nothing but judging a person or an individual based on the physical parameter, physical appearance of the person, which is quite visible because face is the index of the mind, of the man rather. So by looking at the face of the person, you are able to judge the personality or the character of that person, is what is in essence called physiognomy. And in contrast, there is another terminology which they try to bring in called the phrenology. And phrenology here, the external shape of the skull. So here people have conducted some autopsies and all, especially the criminals. So they said there is a quite instead of face, if you see the skull also, even at that deeper layer also, there are some extreme shapes and conditions that have been observed, and then say that is phrenology, judging the character, or rather trying to understand the criminality by looking at the shape of the skull, shape and structure of the skull, some bumps and all which are abnormally there in the skull. By reading those things during anatomy or during the post-mortem, they say we can understand the personality. So exterior of the skull conform to its interior. See, whatever appearance that the person is portraying, that they say is getting reflected at the skull level also. So these are two kinds of different subsects of this science. They said physiognomy as well as phrenology. Physiognomy straight away talks about the features of the face, whereas phrenology is talking about the the internal structure of the skull. That is, there are abnormal bumps, there are abnormal protrudings and all. They take that as a kind of a inferiority, and then by studying the skull, which is otherwise called as phrenology, one can also assess, or rather presume or assume the criminality of the person, is what is about phrenology. Now again, the other scientists, they try to list out some 26 special features of the brain. They said there are as many as some 26 parameters that are there when you talk of abnormalities, and they again try to divide, the three regions of the compartment, like lower active propensities, moral sentiments, and then intellectuals. So these, of course, Gall is the one who tried to give some special listed characters, 26 rather in number, but then they also said to be grouped into three regions or compartments. So they said lower are the active propensities, that means who have the more propensity to be one, and then the moral sentiments, and then they said the third one being the intellectual faculty. So these also have lot of contributions. So then again, the propensities, they said, could be held in restraint by moral sentiment. See, the propensity to become a criminal, it has got a rider. It is going to be restrained by moral sentiment, because once you have the moral sentiment and then intellectual faculty, you will definitely try to employ these two, and then your propensity to commit a crime, so it will be restrained, it will be controlled by your own moral sentiment that you are composed of, and your own intellectual faculty, because if these are done, if these antisocial things are done, or if these criminal activities are done, definitely there is going to be punishment, there are going to be consequences. So the propensities, though you have that propensity, but that will be controlled or restrained with the help of your moral sentiment you have, and your own intellectual faculty are going to govern, and they are going to take control of, and your propensity to commit a crime can be restrained, it can be restricted. So if that is the case, if you are able to beat your propensity, it's all internal, you have all internal factors. So one of the internal factor is propensity to commit crime, isn't it? So you have that zeal to come, given a chance you want to commit that, but then that is the propensity you have, that is the desire you have. But then there are again internal controls in you. One is your moral makeup and the other one is your intellectual makeup. So there is a conflict. So there is a kind of a antagonism that is going on. Now, if these are there, if they are, the propensity it gets defeated in the process, your moral sentiment and intellectual faculty take over in that conflict. No, they are over governing, or they may be superseding the propensity. Then the resultant will be you will not commit crime, no crime. So propensity gets reduced because you have moral sentiment and intellectual faculty controlling that. So they are superseding. That is the reason, though you have a propensity to commit crime, but then you are restrained, you have been controlled. So we can say no crime. Now character and then conduct, both of these conceived as equilibrium in the and they are the opposite forces, conceived as equilibrium in the they are the opposite forces. Now animal propensity might impel the individual to commit a crime, opposed by higher sentiment and intellectual. See, we told you that there are propensity of animal nature which are there, isn't it? And we have our own internal control systems also, I told you. And there is an impelling instinct, on the individual to commit crime. That is the animal propensity we have. And opposed to that, I told you that if you have a high moral or high sentiments or high intellectual thing where you can understand the consequences and all, so in that case there will not be any crime, isn't it? So if the other one exceeds, you have a very low moral or low intellect or animal kind of a propensity superseding, then definitely you would like to commit a crime. So your criminality will be on the higher side. To commit a particular crime or to propensity to commit a particular crime will be more in that case. So this is how they say. And how will you control? After all, these propensities or the tendencies, as we call, need to be controlled. It is an acquired kind of a control. It's not inborn. As you grow, you need to acquire, you need to cultivate, isn't it? That kind of a thing. How will you do that? So in case of children and adults, careful training of the thing in the right living world. So if you are in the amongst of people who are following righteousness and all, that is the right way. So how you bring up people and all, how you bring up the children and all. So you are inculcating more and more moral sentiment into them. You are intellectually, you are training them, you are sharpening their intellectual faculty. So the result, as the child grows up, then it tries to pick up the right things in the living world, and then this will strengthen the organ of decision making, isn't it? And that is the character which is desirable, isn't it? So we want less of an animal propensity to commit crime and more of this intellectual faculty as well as the moral sentiment that should be there. Now, that is one of the theories, propounded. And the other school of thought, or the school of thought proposed by Lombroso to Goring. So from Lombroso to Goring, there are so many criminologists who try to propound a lot of theories. And then in criminal anthropology, these two people are the main ones. Now, what is their proposition? The proposition is, anatomical features of a human body, if you try to observe. I mean, they not only the shape of the skull or the features of this face, as we have seen in phrenology and physiognomy. So not these things, but then some of the physical characters that Lombroso is trying to link with the crime, link it to the crime. So what are those? Included deviation in head size and then shape. He said, so these are the things he propounded, isn't it? So there is some abnormal head, some earlobes are long, and then some prominent ridge, supra-ridge, etc. We have studied in the last class. So many of these characters were said to be, they said to resemble the lower animals. See, if you see apes and then monkeys and all, chimpanzees, so whatever characters that these lower animals, not lower animals I should say, compared to man, they are definitely lower in the hierarchy. But if you try to observe these characters, so these anatomical characters rather, so there is a deviation. What they said is, phrenology, they said there is definitely some bumps, some deviations, some peculiar characters that have been observed, especially with regard to head and size of it and then shape of it. So what they say is, many of the characters, when they try to examine, there were more resemblances towards lower animals like monkeys, because we also say that our ancestors, forefathers, great grandfathers and all, they are descended from monkeys and chimpanzees. Monkey and chimpanzee is the closest ancestor, we can say. So primitive people are people who have this kind of a peculiar manifestation, peculiar characters, are more towards resembling a lower animal like monkeys and chimpanzees. So they are primitive, they are inferior rather. So again, Lombroso, what he did is, he has not said this out of, some instinct and all, but he had done a lot of being a doctor and all. He conducted a lot of autopsies on as many as 60 male criminals and then females also. So he has done a lot of studies, and then he said some characters are very significant characters and they are very, very primitive, and then because they are resembling more of a lower animals, hence we say they are primitive in nature. So apart from autopsies, what he did, lot of, we also studied in the last class that a lot of Italian soldiers and then non-criminals were also accordingly they were tested. Of course, living people we will not be conducting any autopsy, but then physical features we will be observing in living people. So he tried to observe this, and then other category of people were also lunatics, because they are also have a though not criminals, they also have differently abled kind of ability. That is, I mean, they are not able to understand the consequences of their own actions. So he also makes them as a separate entity. So three different experiments and three different categories of entities he is making. One is, people dead and gone. Their autopsies he conducted, and they have a criminal history. People who died were criminals. So such people he selectively took, and then he started doing autopsy on those things, on those people. So almost some 60 to 70 male criminals he tried to examine, do the autopsy and try to observe. That is one experiment. In another experiment, he also tried to take living people this time. So again, there is a category of living people. One is the soldiers, Italian soldiers he has taken. The other category is non-criminals. So physical features, how are they different? And he also examines the lunatics. So after doing all these kind of experimentation, very objective kind of an experimentation, backed up by empirical data and all, he definitely says that physical characters are linked to crime. That is ultimately what he tries to bring in. Of course, I mean, though he says that there is a linkage, but then for the first time he is propounding the theory based on some objective scientific data. So always we call him as the father of criminology anyway. Asymmetry of the feature, large jawbone and all this we have already discussed. So Lombroso propounded this kind of a theory. Now, convicted versus non-convicted group comparison, then distinction between born criminals and then persons with criminal tendencies, all that we said, criminaloids and then the insane criminals, then we also said criminals. So this is what is the looking at the biological thing and then face of the person and all, where Lombroso proposes this kind of a theory. Now Goring, what he tried to do is, I said from Lombroso to Goring, what is Goring, whether he supported the version of Lombroso or has he something else to say. No, he mainly relied upon the objective of measuring the physical and then both mental characters. So he included that also apart from physical character. So he said additional we need to take into account the mental character also. Now general hereditary inferiority of the human being as the basis of the criminal conduct. He also agrees that general hereditary, that means if an inferiority exists in one particular generation of parents, that is going to be given to the younger generation also, because it has got a hereditary basis governed by heredity. So that is the basis after all for the criminal conduct. So somebody showing some criminal intention or propensities, or given a situation why some people alone are opting that. So for all this he attributes there is definitely a link which is called the hereditary link, where he says if inferior character based people are there, or inferior manifestations of abnormality, people with that innate character, if the parents are such that, so the progeny out of those parents also are going to pass on this kind of a trait to the younger generation. That is another thing Goring tries to differentiate. Now differences are real and significant. What he says is whatever difference we are able to observe, they are real and then significant. Indicate general inferiority of the hereditary. So that's what he proposes. He only strongly believes that, not only that, I mean, why is this? What is the origin? What is the basis? Why are some people showing this kind of? So that is, they are hereditary. It only tries to say that their parents also must be having this kind of a trait. So they must be inheriting this from their parents, and this is inherited. That means inferiority, whatever we observe, is the, of course, basis for the criminal conduct. And why is it coming to only certain people? Why is it not getting reflected in others, otherwise normal people? The backing that they say, Goring says, is that they are inherited. The inferior nature of a particular character is inherited. So their parents definitely are, some forefathers of the generation, older generation, definitely must be having some abnormal character, and in the process of passing on the characters, the parents must have passed on these traits to the younger generation. So that's what, and then he says whatever differences that we are able to discern, they are real also and they are significant. And then this is the general inferiority of the hereditary character, that is inferiority of the trait that gets transferred from the parents or that gets transmitted from the parents to the offspring, is the little modification to the Lombroso theory that Goring is trying to make. The only difference between him and Goring, him and Lombroso and then Goring, is that he added, apart from physical parameter, he tries to attribute mental character also for that. And not only that, he also goes little ahead and saying that this, whatever inferiority we try to observe, whatever abnormality that we try to observe, it is not restricted to one person, since it is a hereditary in nature. It must be definitely, it must have passed on from the parents to the offspring. So that is one theory. And there is another theory propounded by the criminologist called Sheldon, Sheldon, Sheldon. And again, Sheldon to quotes, there are like Lombroso to Goring, there are in between people, but these two people have contributed much. That is the reason why we try to remember these people mostly. Now, they propounded a strong theory that, body types are also responsible. So people have different body types, and then some people with a different body type, there is more tendency for such people to become criminals and all, is the body type theory. So physical appearance of the body, not only face and then not only the mental makeup, this time they have used body as such, and the temperament of the person, temperament of the person. That means here we mean the criminal responsibility, criminal liability rather. So that is attributed, they say, to the physical appearance of the body. Now human beings, as we all know, they start their lives or our lives with an embryo. So fusion of the egg with the sperm results in the formation of an embryo, and then we know that it's a mere tube and it is made of 3 layers, and we try to call the outer layer as ectoderm, then the middle layer mesoderm, then the inner layer endoderm. So we all started with an embryo, and our organ systems, everything started developing from that embryo. And embryo, it has formed as a tube with all 3 layers. So endo, ecto and then meso are the 3 layers. So what Sheldon is trying to do is, he tried to construct a correspondence between physical and mental topology. He said, people with this kind of a character, if he is more mesodermic, mesomorphic, he has these characters. If his character is more towards this endomorphism, he has certain traits. Like that, he is trying to correlate, or rather try to construe a kind of a correspondence between what? Physical and then mental topology. And he said consistent with known facts from the embryology and physiology of the development. So what he said is, there is a high degree of correspondence between physical appearance of the body and then the temperament of the mind. So this is about the body type, and as I said, he tries to give different physical parameters and what is the temperament that person has got. So for example, if the physique is endomorphic, so what is the parameter there? Relatively great development of digestive system. So endomorphic people are those who have got great development of the digestive system, like viscera, and then they since they have a good digestive system, definitely they tend to eat more and then they try to put on fat, isn't it? So fat people with rounded softness face and all at the various regions, he tries to say, classify them as endomorphic. Morphic means externally looking like. So since that is the thing, what is their temperament? Temperament wise they are called viscerotonic. Viscera means body parts, body organs which are the inside the body. They are called viscera collectively. So since this digestive system is well developed in this phase, in these people, and since they have very fat tendency to put on weight and all, so he says they are called temperament wise, they are viscerotonic. So what do you understand by when a person is viscerotonic? He simply says generally they are relaxed and then comfortable, and they want luxury. They are called softy, but still essentially they are extroverts. So this is the temperament. So what he is trying to do is, the construe are trying to make a kind of a matching between the physique of the person and then what is going to be his temperament. So once he classifies a person as an endomorphic person, based on what? Since he's got a round face, since he is a little fat and all, then his digestive system is also comparatively well developed, great development, then such a person who is endomorphic. So as far as the temperament is concerned, because we said viscera is the internal part, since viscera is most developed, so we call such people as viscerotonic. VISCERO tonic, viscerotonic. And what is their temperament? What kind of temperament were they possessing? Because they are quite relaxed. When you are your hunger is you have good food and you have a tendency to eat more, and that your digestive system is very good and all, so no problem, you have no worries at all, and then you seem to be very relaxed, isn't it? The temperament is that you are a relaxed person and very comfortable. You don't find any trouble in life, and then you feel that you have a comfortable life and all. So such people he called them as softies, and then but internally he says, they are extroverts. That means they are not intro, they don't hide anything, and they are so relaxed, and they are extroverts. So the second physical character what he says is mesomorphic. Mesomorphic. So what they say, they are relatively predominant of muscles because they are more muscular. Unlike the other first category where they are little fatty, but these mesomorphic people, he says they are more muscular. And then motor organs of the body are large trunks, heavy chest, large wrist, and then these are the not lean, so very heavily built and all. These are mesomorphic people. So they are called somotonic. Somato means body, isn't it? Somato means other than the visceral organ, somatic, somotonic. They are called somotonic. So what is their temperament? They are active, dynamic, and they are assertive, very aggressive. So this is, he is trying to correlate between the physical appearance with the temperament. So mesomorphic, what is the characters? So when compared to the endomorphic people, where we said people are fat, people have a well developed digestive system, they tend to eat more and then they put on weight, and then they are very relaxed people, they feel that they are very comfortable and all, and that is the temperament with the endomorphic. So also with the mesomorphic, since they have a well built body, musculature is there, they are very bony, they are heavily built, and they are not lean. So these characters are, your body structure is this mesomorphic, and then that gets reflected in your temperament, and such people we call them as somotonic. Somotonic are compared to these people, they are little active, so they are relaxed, they are passive. Endomorphic people are that type of temperament, and somotonic people in contrast, they are very dynamic, they are very aggressive, and then they are very assertive. Now the third category what he says is, since ectomorphic features are more, because out of the 3 layers that we have in embryo, so some people have more development of one layer rather the underdevelopment of another layer. So what he says is, in ectomorphic people, they are they have this predominance of skin and its appendages, which include the nervous system, and then they have delicate body, delicate bones, droppy shoulders, small faces, sharp noses. I mean, these are all some of the ectomorphic features. And then he tells them, or the temperament what they have is cerebrotonic, something related to brain, because nervous system and all he is saying, includes the nervous system, lean, fragile, and also they are called cerebrotonic. Cerebro means something related to the nervous system and brain. So they are called temperament wise cerebrotonic. So unlike the category of mesomorphic, they are little introvert in nature. So we said the endomorphic people are extroverts, isn't it? So we see here these people are little introverts, and then they have full functional complements, and they have some skin problems, skin allergies, chronic fatigue and all, because they are lean built, feebly built, fragile, isn't it, delicate, isn't it? So the nervous system is of course little well developed, full functioning. So they are introverts. So they have all feelings and all, they don't express themselves, they are introverts, and shrinks from the crowd. So they normally they're not gregarious, they don't mingle with people. They have, by looking at the crowd, they have that phobia to come into crowds and all. So this is the temperament of the people. So endomorphic, mesomorphic, ectomorphic, each category they have a different physic in them. So in one category maybe digestive system is predominantly more developed, in mesomorphic maybe musculature is more developed, and yet another third category there is more developed nervous system, and then they, though their physique and all is little fragile and all, but then they are very strong. They have the strong or well developed nervous system. So something related to nervous system, they are coining the word cerebrotonic. So viscerotonic, somatotonic, and then cerebrotonic. So these are as far as the temperament of the mental makeup is concerned. Then physique is endomorphic, mesomorphic, and then the ectomorphic. I think I am clear about these things. Then comes another.
And all this is propounded by Sheldon?
This body type and all is Sheldon propounded. Body type is propounded by Sheldon, and then Lombroso, he went on saying that it is only they are born criminals, and he said born criminals, but it could not stand the modern era of analogy, where they said these are all, I mean, situation alone makes anybody either good or bad. The situational context is important, that also we try to. And then there are people who are not able to understand their own criminal action. They don't consider them to be criminal because they don't have any idea about the consequences of their action. So we try to categorize minors, who because of their tender age they are not able to understand the consequences. And the third category we said are lunatics, isn't it? Lunatics. So that way he said, of course, his own assumptions he tried to withdraw sometime, and then he tries to add some more things or not, situational context and all. Of course, from Lombroso to Goring, this is the, transition from one theory to the other one. So like that, body type theory is propounded by Sheldon. And accordingly, when you go to courts and all, CORTS is another, criminologist. So he also tries to modify. And the basic concept of body type remains the same, but then maybe little some experimentation, some 1 or 2 points they may add. That is the reason why we try to put Sheldon to course in the same category of the theory, that is body type theory. Am I clear?
Ma'am, out of these 3 categories, mesomorphic will have the most propensity towards crime, right?
I know that's because they are little aggressive. So mere being, they have little propensity. I mean, these are all theories which should also be backed. They should be backed by some kind of a objective experimentation, scientific experiment. Though the concept wise they have some seem to have some scientific background, but then why they are being thrown away by the modern theories? Why are they being thrown away? So there is not much correlation, isn't it? Though they claim that there is correlation, but then you cannot say all fat people are criminals, or all fat people try to be a little joyful and all. Can we draw any analogy like that? So this is their own thinking. They said that there is correlation. That's what they are saying. That is their theory. So what people a lot, I mean, only a small group of people or small sample they must have taken. So whatever sample they have taken, this is the observation that they have made, and they try to put up their theory that these people are like this and there is these tendencies. They are trying to correlate. Physics vis-a-vis the temperament. Physics vis-a-vis the temperament. So if you are complacent, when can somebody be complacent? When you have all your wishes being accomplished, you are an accomplished man, and then you try to, you have no worries and all. I mean, when no worries are there, you have every luxury of life available, you tend to eat more. He is trying to only try to draw some analogies. You try to eat more, and when you try to eat more, that's what is happening in modern generation also. When easy money, easy food, no preparation, no hard work, easy food, and easy to swallow also. You need not use your teeth also to give trouble to your teeth also. So the tendency, you will definitely will put on weight, but that doesn't mean that you have the either propensity to crime, to commit crime, or not so much tendency to commit crime and all. We cannot. I mean, now this modern day, it may look for us very absurd and meaningless, isn't it? But then at least they try to introduce some kind of a scientific approach and all. I mean, during their times they are great. They are criminologists who try to at least bring in some kind of a correlation, isn't it? So of course these old theories are definitely thrown by the modern theories, where more objectivity is there, and then more experimentation is there, and then a lot of studies have gone into, and then so this thing will happen in history, isn't it? So primitively they may say this, but nevertheless some beginning somewhere it is made. So they are also being remembered even today, isn't it? Why we call Lambroso as the great man, as the father of criminology and all? Why do we say? At least that was for the first time. Earlier, neo school and not neo school, classical skill, they used to say spiritual. There is criminal is the one who is been possessed by some spirit. That used to be the thing. This is much more better. Lambroso is at least better. He is trying to use his brain and then trying to bring in some objectivity, some scientific kind of a thinking, isn't it? So that's how the thinking process has evolved as people try to modernize. So a lot of new thinking also is going into new theories, isn't it? You don't agree?
Yes, ma'am. Lambroso actually has done lot of experiment on human beings.
I told you,
After that, I
doing autopsies of 60 people, dead people, is not a joke. I know.
Yes.
So he has, in his own way, he is also objective. See, he is using some scientific thing.
What is lunatic, ma'am?
What is it?
Lunatic. You mentioned lunatic also.
Lunatic is a person who has got mental imbalance. Lunacy.
Okay.
Imbalance. The person who has, who doesn't have the mental equilibrium. He can be called as an insane person, lunatic. Lunacy. Lunacy is also one of the, in modern day time, general exceptions. You can also take defense on the ground of lunacy. My client is lunatic, he is insane.
Outside mind and insane is another.
So lunatic means they are treated as synonymous words only. Lunacy, and then only the degree of abnormality only varies. A lunatic can also become little lucid at times. At times he, during that lucid interval, he might be knowing the consequences of the crime, and that is the reason why prosecution always tries to establish the fact at that particular point of time when he was committing the crime, he was quite not lunatic, at least he was in his senses and he knows the consequence. So there in new criminal laws also, this is very important. It comes under the general exception kind of a thing. So where private defense and all, along with others also, lunacy and intoxication, these things, because these are the people who lose their conscience. Once you lose their conscience, you will not be able to understand what are the, otherwise when you are normal you will know definitely, but when you are under these conditions, you will not be able to know the consequences. That is the reason why these are voluntary intoxication and all. These are there in the general exceptions as we learn more into the IPC, CRPC thing. Is this so far clear? Endomorphic,
Yes, ma'am.
mesomorphic, ectomorphic.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So Sheldon is talking about these things, these body shapes and then
All types.
temperament. Trying to correlate, put up an analogy, isn't it? And the other school of thought is, biological factors in criminal behavior. How do these manifest? What kind of a impact these things have on the behavior of the person, and more so in criminals when we talk of criminal behavior. Now, structurally, individuals are different. We do agree that each person is not same as the other one. There is definitely some difference between them. So, they are attributing this difference. Structurally, why individuals are different? Because they should, since they are structurally different, so that gets reflected even in their behavior. So, that means structure is more important, and that is the reason why people are different and they have different behaviors. So theories focus on inherited characters. So like in the body type and all, also we try to had this element of when we say inferiority or atavism, atavistic and all, we said they are inferior, biologically inferior. They are trying to inherit these things from their forefathers and all. This kind of a 1 second power is off. Normally this time power goes away, lot of issues. Just bear with me, let me get some artificial. ठीक है. So we try to understand that inferiority thing also, and we said it is inherited. So that way this theory also says, the biological factor theory also says, people are structurally different, and definitely when people are structurally different, that also gets reflected in their behavior. Now, this focuses more on hereditary characters. Now, individuals behave separately and also differently as they are structurally also different. This is the basis of the theory. Now, focus is on inherited characters. What are the characters which are inherited? And even modern biological theory also, it has got its significance. And they said, born character, they are criminals are born and all. I mean, this is absurd. That's what they say. Now, this theory that born criminal theory doesn't work. That's what they say. Apart from these things, biological characters, the environment also environmentally introduced. They are all the characters, whatever we observe, the behavior, whatever we see in them, because they are structurally different. Not only that, but environment also has got its own environmentally induced they are, rather than biologically conditioned. So biological things, certain things do have impact, but then it's not alone. The biological traits alone will not decide the behavior of a person, but in additional you may have to take into account the environment rather, or we can say when people are not able to adopt themselves to the changing environment, so that creates a kind of a character, a different character, maladaptive character or maladaptive behavior to the environment in which he is existing. So that may tend to violent or antisocial kind of a thing. So these violent antisocial has got a sanction, legal sanction. So it has to be defined in the law that it is the act, whatever that comes out of this maladaptive behavior, it should have a legal definition also. Only then it can be termed as a crime. That is the concept that they give. So the basic thing is, structurally people are different, biologically they are different, and hence that is getting reflected in their character too. And then they say not only these characters, biological characters, they can be shaped, they can be conditioned by the environment in which they are existing. That means some people can easily adjust to the changing environments or the changing society norms, but others are not able to that much adopt. So when they are not able to adopt, definitely there is a kind of a conflict, there is a dilemma, isn't it? Whenever there is a dilemma, that generates a lot of stress in you. So to mitigate stress, what you do is, because you are not able to adapt to it, it is called maladaptive behavior. So maladaptive behavior slowly turns into violent behavior or antisocial behavior. And then since if such a violent behavior or antisocial behavior, if it gets a sanction from the law, if it is defined in the law, definitely that particular act can be termed as a criminal act. So that is what is the biological theory, or how biological factors are influencing the criminal behavior and all. Now normal, and one more a subset of that biological theory is chromosomal theory, chromosomes and then crime. I hope people who have the biology background or science background, they must be definitely knowing what chromosomes are. I hope most of you or all of you know what chromosomes are. Are you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So chromosomes also have lot of so there can be some abnormality in the count of the chromosomes. Normally we say that X and X chromosome will result in a female, and fusion of X with Y will result in the formation of a male. So XX person is female, XY is male. So that gender is decided by the male, isn't it? That's what we have in the human chromosomal thing. Now chromosomal abnormalities can also be there. Chromosomal abnormalities on account of lot of things, factors again, consanguineous marriages, a lot of other things are there. So why a particular individual gets an extra component? See, X is normal, XY is normal, XX is a normal female, XY is a male normal female. But then there can be some kind of an abnormality. Suppose if I have a X in instead of double dose, triple dose, trisomy of X we say. So trisomy of X is an abnormality, isn't it? So, and similarly XX and Y. See, XX and Y, that means they are hermaphrodites to some extent. They have male and female characters both, because by virtue of being a Y component, they should be called as males. But since XX is a composition for females, we can also say female characters are also there in them. So these individuals will have both the characters. They will be exhibiting both the characters. XX, by virtue of XS, female character; by virtue of XY, male character. So that is an abnormality. So what is that abnormality? What is the difficulty? So since they are showing different character outwardly, for society also they are looking little abnormal only, isn't it? Not able to define their roles in the society. See, for example, XXY man, a person who has got this composition XXY, that means double X and then Y. If he suppose has this kind of a composition, he thinks, or society may think that he is a female, and may have been brought up like that as a female, let us say, and yet find difficulty in accepting the female role. So he doesn't believe that, though I am brought up as a female and all, but then since his mindset is something different. There is some chromosomal abnormality, since the Y element is also there. He doesn't accept himself to be a female, and then because of that Y gene, Y chromosome, he has that tendency of a male in him. So that means there is a conflict again. He finds it difficult so to accept that he is a female. And let us say conversely, the same person XSY may have been brought up as a male, let us say, but have reservation about the role, isn't it? So there are two scenarios. He may be grown, or I mean he may be brought up the way he is a female, dressed up like a female, isn't it? So to accept his own role as something different, role is something, social role is something, and what you internally have, your makeup, your biological thing is something different, isn't it? So whenever these things are there are conflicts. Definitely you are grown up as something, and then as you grow up you have some secondary sexual characters are also developing in contrast to your role in society, isn't it? In contrast to the gender that is being accepted socially, isn't it? So there is a conflict there. So recent theory is that then a presence of XXY chromosome in the male produced an overly aggressive super male. So they are called super male, and then they are exhibiting lot of aggressive character. So whenever irrational aggressive character, if it is there in the person, that tendency is, every aggressive action, every overt action on the part of the individual tends to make him little irrational. Once you are irrational, once you lose your cool and all, then the propensity to become criminal, that is also there. So they are trying to correlate the chromosomal abnormality with some criminal trait or some criminal behavior. Then they are aggressive because they think that they are super males, and then this XYY character. Sorry, did I say XXY?
No, ma'am, you said XYY.
Yes.
One side XXY. See, XYY means double dose of Y, isn't it? Super, what you call super male, isn't it? So he thinks he is been reared up as male and all, but then since XY is also, X is also there, I mean that kind of thing. He thinks superhuman because I have super male, I have double dose of Y, so I am super male. So there is again a conflict. So when compared to his normal brother, sibling, who has got a normal composition of the chromosomes, XY brothers. So whenever there is a comparison, there is a conflict between them, a conflict with the law more frequently than do XY. So XYY person who feels himself as a super male, he always tries to compare with his sibling who has got a normal XY, isn't it? So he tries to, why this person, though he is also male, and why he is also my brother, and then why is he normal? Why am I abnormal? Isn't it? So why am I not being considered as a super male, and although I have a double dose and all? So this kind of a comparison leads to definitely some kind of a conflict, isn't it? So he finds himself little odd. So conflict thereby arises, and then whenever there is a conflict, there is an aggression, there is a non-acceptance, non-conformity. So in the process of attaining normality or conformity, so there is always conflict that leads somebody to some slowly that criminal trait builds into him, and then tendency to become a criminal and all. These are the things, and the first finding that XYY chromosome in the adult male was reported in English medical jurisprudence, and then they said some kind of an aggressive character can be linked with that, is their thinking. So chromosomal backing or chromosomal theory only says that normal composition, people are normal when they have a normal complement of the XX or XY, they are called as normal male and normal female. But whereas there are exceptional cases, maybe in some individuals there is a double dosage of X, but then also have a Y component. So they are called XXY, where the feminine characters will be more prominent, though they may be brought up as males and all, or maybe females. So for society to accept them because of their little different abnormal behavior, it will be difficult to get the social acceptance that they are, either male or internally they may be thinking that they are males or females exclusively, but because of this abnormal component, so there are some deviations there. So there are experiments also which say, super male and all. I mean, he also has got a conflict because in the same family there is a fellow who is abnormal with abnormal chromosomal composition, yet another sibling with the same the balanced kind of a composition of chromosomes. So he always tries, he has immediate sibling to compare with, so he tries to always compare with him. So why I have this aggressive tendency, why this fellow, the other fellow doesn't have my own brother, why he doesn't have that kind of a thing. So there is always a conflict, there is always a split of mind, and then I mean that tendencies lead somebody to become a criminal and all is what is propounded in the other. This is also one of the biological theories only, but then they are banking their assumptions on the number and composition of the chromosomes. So how about family studies? What role are they going to play on the human behavior, and is that also hereditary and all? So explanations of human behavior in terms of heredity, so that is there. I mean, quite historically, if you say, it is there, and then heredity also it is there. I mean, human behavior vis-a-vis the heredity, that is there. I mean, it has got observation right from the beginning, and you try to see in children mostly. Children resemble their parents, or we say maternal uncle के ऐसा features इनका जैसा है. So like that we try to have that analogy, then their parents' appearance, manners, not only their the way he walks, see जैसा father ऐसा उन्होंने walk करते थे उन्होंने भी वैसा walk कर रहे, how his gait is there, how his mannerism there, how his disposition is there. We try to observe these things, quite common. So likewise scientific theories also started developing based on the heredity. And way back in 1850 itself there were the power is, I mean, making lot of havoc here. At times it goes, at times I have to arrange for some artificial light and all, otherwise battery backed up lights and all. You have to just bear with me. These things are frequently happening. So we are family studies, we're trying to understand the impact of family on these human behavior. So we said hereditary, we strongly believe, we can see that siblings, the offsprings resembling the parents, and then are some maternal uncle or paternal uncles or great grandfathers, they have a lot of resemblances, not only appearances, the way somebody has picked up some idiosyncrasies, some mannerisms and all, they are all inherited. See, this is, I mean, way back in 1850 only we have understood these linkages, and then statistics, new statistics. One scientist tries to, criminologist rather, he tries to understand the statistical method for that, and then he is none other than the Francis Galton. Francis Galton is the one who tries to measure the degree of resemblance to the and then tries to correlate that with the behaviors and all. So he tries to apply some scientific method and statistics to that, and then he tries to say resemblances and then behaviors and all. He comes up that kind of a analogy. And Goring also uses this kind of an analogy analysis for studying the criminality, and then he draws a conclusion that crime is inherited as much as any other character, physical characters, features. We say that they are inherited from parents to offspring. So also this is another kind of a behavior. So a trait, definitely it should also have some the role. Inheritance definitely should have some role in passing on the character from the parents to offspring, is what is he propounds. The Goring also propounds. So what he says is there is a high correlation between the frequency and length of imprisonment of one parent and that of the other. So, but later on, he says, no relation between, frequency of length, and then after conducting some studies, he withdraws from his own theory, saying that, no, there is no correlation, but then environment is going to definitely play some important role there. So that's what he said. And then environment, we say immediate situation, and by immediate situation we mean the school, the education, the broken homes. So we can talk of these things. So he says, there is no incarceration or length of incarceration and all. They have scientifically no, correlation. That's what he ultimately said. I think we can stop at this point because there is frequent power off and on. I am also, my eyes are straining little today. So we'll have this twin adoption and other theories probably tomorrow. I think tomorrow we do have class. So there we can talk about more on hormones and the autonomic nervous systems and all, and how neurotransmitters are going to play some role in shaping the character of the person and all. I think probably we can talk about it tomorrow. So for today we can leave the meeting. So any other thing regarding exam and all, I'll share the that timetable. But then again I am asking, initially I try to put one question. So the timetable which has been issued to me, I don't see any PG diploma students from the stream of DNA forensics, and for ballistics also I don't see any timetable there. So what timetable is given is only for these three streams, that is crime scene, then fingerprint, and one more is document. Only for these people some timetable is given, but I am not very sure, at least in physically it is not getting reflected in the timetable, other two streams, DNA and ballistics. Is there any idea for you? Because the S1 P1 is being common and everybody has to write on the same day, but then I don't know why that particular name is not there. DNA का उसका ballistics का जिक्र नहीं है उधर. I don't know what is the reason for that.
Maybe the coordinator is different, ma'am. That could be the reason.
No, they said for all S1 P1 because that's common, is there any variation in other things, DNA and all? Is it different? I don't think. DNA people are they present in the group or not? Why are they silent?
There are.
Let them speak. See, you know what is your first paper, S1 P1?
Yes, ma'am. I think yesterday only you said like everyone's going to be taking it on the same day.
No, I told that because since I am teaching for entire streams of PG diplomas, I am teaching. I know that S1 P1 has to be the same. Otherwise, they will not say you will be responsible for S1 P1 and that is common and you have to take common bulk. But then why is this stream not figuring out in the timetable is my concern. Do they have the exam on some other day? Do I have to again strain myself to conduct it for them for the second time with a different paper? No, these are my concerns. Otherwise, I have no issue.
Your issue will provide the clarification, ma'am. Somebody can write to them.
I am because before I talk to them headquarters, I should be clear. I should be getting clarification from the students also, isn't it? So that is the reason I am asking. Yesterday only I told you I got the timetable, isn't it? So I have told you that this is the timing that they have given for the remaining. But surprisingly, when I have just gone deeper into the timetable, when I am trying to see whether everybody is getting reflected, all PG diplomas are getting reflected, to my surprise, I could not see these two streams, DNA and ballistics. I am yet to find their names. At least the name of the diploma should be there, no, in the timetable. Even everybody is S1 P1, if it is common, their name should also be there.
Ma'am, because for the second paper, us from DNA, we haven't gotten the dates finalized yet. But as I said, like yesterday or day before that, when we discussed about this, when you said like you guys decide amongst yourselves about the date,
That was
I told you that,
prior to
yeah.
getting the timetable. That was.
So I told you on that very day, like ma'am said that it's going to be between 9 to 13th, whenever. So, and yesterday she said it's going
They have
to
given the
either be
issued
on
that.
9.
But then how come that you are not figuring anywhere? Is it a separate timetable that they are going to make? And also I have to get clarification from them, and only then I will be able to tell with confidence that yes, they have a separate date, or they are going to be there on the same day and all, because this is all online platform. I told you, so creative and all. So I have to allow or not to allow. These issues are there. It's better that we get clarification before that date. Otherwise, on that day, everybody will be panic.
Yes,
So
ma'am. And
I'll get
also,
that clarification.
if you could just write down the exact syllabus on the group, that would be helpful,
No, why?
because
I
there
got
are.
the soft copy, I can share. I mean, there are too many things that are going on in my mind. I am not able to concentrate on any single thing. So I thought I have already shared. Yesterday only I told you I'll share the
The
PowerPoint also. I
PPTs you have
forgot.
shared, ma'am.
Huh?
PPTs you shared yesterday.
But,
No, today actually you
the
shared.
PPTs I have shared, but then I forgot to share this timetable because that was recent, yesterday's phenomena only. So probably with the frequent power going off, and I'm getting little nervous also. Why is this happening? Why every time power goes, and if this is the thing happening, I will not be able to. My time will be wasted in only getting that artificial light and all, some battery backup light and all. I mean, if I have to run around these things, my attention also gets diverted. So I am in that state of mind. Probably, maybe you have to just, till I get adjusted, you have to just bear with me. So timetable and all, no problem. After this class, I will be sharing that. And similarly for other streams, why either they forgot it, gone out of their mind, and then why they have some reasons not to include, I have to yet to find out. So I'll seek some clarification, and I'll post that in the groups. But anyway, let
Yes,
me
ma'am.
do this job of putting up the timetable first. So you can also
Yeah,
maybe,
timetable and the syllabus also.
which syllabus?
Ma'am, for the TA1, the exact syllabus, like what all topics would
हाँ ठीक है,
be.
वो जो भी कवर हुआ है उसी में मिलेंगे ना. अब कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस वो सब एलिमेंट्स वगैरह तो पढ़ा है. सो प्रॉबली अप टू बायोलॉजी वी ट्राई टू, आई मीन वट एवर वी स्टडी इन द नाइन्थ मीन्स कल क्या है, फिफ्थ होगा ना कल. So I may not include fifth portion. I may not include that maybe. Today's class, tomorrow's class I may not include. Is that okay? Up to that portion?
Yes, madam.
No,
Yes,
ma'am,
ma'am.
the maxims one, the PPT that you've shared, it won't be included, right?
No.
Huh?
You've shared this one PPT.
No, that is only for academic purpose. I don't think that I'll be giving.
Maximum should be for understanding basic.
No. If somebody is interested, over enthusiastic, wanted to know everything under this thing, for those people, people who are academic bent of mind, want to know more and
So
more.
that is the only reason, ma'am, because I
I
got
know.
confused, like what all things are. That's why I
No,
asked you
no.
to
See,
just
as
write
per
down the
the syllabus,
syllabus.
strictly as per the syllabus. Nothing more and nothing less. See, syllabus I think I have shared, or I forgot.
No, ma'am. No, you haven't. That's why only I asked.
हाँ, syllabus तो
No,
है
the
ना आपके
syllabus is
पास.
there. I think syllabus have been shared during the initial classes.
नहीं वही
Maybe
सिलेबस एक ही
wasn't in
S1 P1 का एक ही सिलेबस होता है ना, कंसिस्टिंग ऑफ 4 or 5 यूनिट्स है ना. वी आर इन यूनिट
yeah,
1.
but for TA1, I'm asking. I think the whole
हाँ
syllabus, obviously,
नहीं
we
नहीं नहीं
read it earlier, but
हाँ, that's
it's
what
only
I'm
6 books.
saying. Out of that also, whatever we have covered so far, and I am saying that tomorrow's class I will not be including. See, tomorrow's class I may discuss some hormone and some autonomic nervous system, lot many things I may discuss, but then I will not include that in the exam. Is that okay?
Okay, ma'am.
That is fine, ma'am.
And I think I have already, whatever since I am not finding time to prepare PPTs, I am straight away trying to read it out from the PDF. I think PDF also my husband has shared with all of you. So both of us
Yes, ma'am.
simultaneously working. He'll be
Yes, ma'am.
taking a laptop, allowing everybody admit, because you have your own whims and fancies in joining. Every time I cannot, deviate and then do this admit business. So admit business my husband is doing, poor man. So whenever power goes and he runs helter shelter, brings that artificial light and all. And we have, I shouldn't be telling all these personal problems to you, but then we have our own issues, and that too in Pune, the place where we live in, it has lot of power offs and all. It will be very difficult. Internet also has got a poor connectivity here. So, but somehow we have to run the show. We are somehow managing, isn't it? So all things apart, but then for tomorrow's class, I will not be including that in the portion. But are you all in receipt of the PDF that we try to share about these theories and all? They are very wonderful piece of notes from IGNOU. So it's a very good notes, I feel. At least some of it, a portion of it we can understand, that is good enough. But anyway, I'll also promise that I'll make some, for the end exam definitely, I'll prepare some PPTs and I'll share. I mean, not immediately, but then give some time for me. I'll definitely do that and try to give you that. So prepare today onwards. I mean, it's going to be easy. Need not be so worried about that. It will be so easy, and it is going to be MCQ, and it's all online platform, isn't it? And time bound. These are the things you have to just remember. The rest of the things are so easy. TK, should we leave?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Right. రికార్డ్ చేయట్లేదన్నా
ఇంకా
ఎన్ని రాసుకున్నా ఏంటో మర్చిపోతున్నారా